Gang, man. Y'all know that, man. Free the wool, man. They know that. Man, what's up, man? Whoa. Free the fucking gang, man. Niggas know how this shit go. Whoa.
The leader, Latique Johnson, who went by the Pilot, was allegedly calling shots from his jail cell in California. Omar Barry and Josiah Herbert were at the top of the gang's hierarchy on Long Island. Law enforcement seized tens of thousands of dollars from Johnson's commissary account. They say he would collect dues from lower-ranking members.
He did that from a jail cell in California. He may or may not have thought he was insulated from prosecution on Long Island. He is not.
A total of 31 alleged gang members and associates were arrested.
2-year-old Ronald Heron, known as Rod Diggs, portrays the gritty lifestyle of the streets in his music videos. The aspiring rapper, with a long rap sheet of drug and weapons charges, tried to convince a jury that he gave up gangbanging for the murderous Mad Dog Bloods to focus on his music after his last prison.
New York Rolling 30s gang members DeMonte Mack, Trayvon Casey, and the gang's leader Sean Garant will spend up to 4 decades in federal prison.
That's 34-year-old Brandon Winnigan, who was sentenced to life in prison yesterday. He was charged with a handful of crimes, including aggravated malicious wounding, child neglect, and doing a criminal act for a gang.
This morning, a gang leader for sex trafficking will spend 32 years behind bars. Court documents say a 16-year-old girl was targeted by Pierre Smith.
Brought up totem slammer. Like, so, Bill had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like, my mom, these little sagging down their knees. I know you ain't got no pistol on. Don't even talk tough to me. You feel me?
Like, jewelry and fast lifestyle.
Gang, man. Why do they chase us, man? We the young chasers, you hear me? We getting that change, though. That's what we do, though. Touch this black, something get dropped.
From our investigation, seems to be the leader of this gang. He's a 49-year-old man. He's been in prison for quite some time. His name is Howard Smith. His nickname is Hamo. He also goes by the Godfather. He's currently serving a life sentence, and we allege that he is the leader of this Brick Squad gang.
Candles sit in the courtyard of East New York's Pink Houses, where 33-year-old Shatavia Walls was shot on July 7th, but sadly died 10 days later.
A Lamborghini SUV slammed into the Toyota Camry she was in around 7 at the intersection of 103rd Avenue and Rockaway Boulevard, leaving this mangled mess.
Brooklyn.
Check in. Gotta check in. Gotta
Straight
check.
like that.
I can't stress it. Gotta check in.
No question.
Know what we mean. Gotta check in.
No question
It's
about
your boy
that.
Cash Detroit, man. We get busy out here.
No toes, no easy path.
The Purple Boys. Yeah, so man can't help you either.
Yesterday, right after a federal grand jury returned his indictment, federal agents arrested Corey Hamlet, the leader of the Grape Street Crips, along with 3 other alleged gang members.
Quentin Lewis, the named leader of the 59 Hoover Gang, a subset of the notorious Crips that officials say had staked its claim in Columbia, Maryland, found guilty of murder and other gang-related charges.
A Montgomery County gang leader is going to be spending the next 15 years in jail as the gang begins to crumble.
Andres Cortez is the man, and among other things, he's accused of sexually assaulting a teenager.
Cortez is believed to have started the gang in his Wheaton Middle School. You can still see this fading gang graffiti nearby.
The alleged leader of the Triple C gang, the gang who was wanted by federal authorities, has been found dead in Georgia.
The target was a gang. It was called the Murderland Mafia Pyro, or MMP. Members operated in northwest Baltimore City and neighboring county neighborhoods.
Police Commissioner Rich Worley says back in January of this year, BPD's Group Violence Unit, which is part of the mayor's group violence reduction strategy, began investigating the Cary boys from Cary Street, a block within the city's long-troubled Sandtown Winchester community.
March 2021 and December of 2023. One video shows 4 gang members shooting into a home while people were inside.
The map of the shootings.
Was arrested on June 7th during a traffic stop on the Ohio Turnpike. He was indicted 2 weeks later by the government, accused of trafficking drugs and ordering multiple
on Long Island.
January, Gwinnett County Police have arrested more than a dozen members of the 59 Brims Blood Street Gang, including 29-year-old Wanawan Wanzon, the alleged leader of the Atlanta branch of the gang, and Marlon Smith, the so-called leader of the gang branch in Virginia, North Carolina.
The leader of a serial armed robbery crew has been sentenced to life in prison after violent restaurant robberies across Gwinnett County, all happening in 2017. Demetrius Sims was given 4 consecutive life sentences plus 90
Story
years.
tonight at 11. The founder of the Mafia criminal street gang in Middle Georgia was sentenced to the maximum prison term allowed by law for illegally possessing a firearm. 45-year-old Alfonso Clyde will spend the next 15 years behind bars, followed by 3 years of probation.
Officials say there are about 70,000 gang members in the state of Georgia, and they say most of the violent crimes and crimes that involve property are committed by suspects associated with some of these local gangs.
Violence in Georgia has escalated.
From the streets of Newark and Baltimore to the neighborhoods of Brooklyn, Atlanta, Durham, and Richmond, some of the most powerful gang leaders on the East Coast built criminal empires that stretched far beyond a single block or city. These weren't just street-level criminals. They were individuals accused of directing drug trafficking operations, ordering acts of violence, controlling gang territories, and influencing entire organizations from behind bars. Along the way, their actions left communities shaken, families devastated, and law enforcement agencies scrambling to dismantle networks that took years to build. In this documentary, we're taking a deep dive into some of the most notorious gang leaders from across the East Coast, including Bloods, Crips, MS-13 commanders, Vice Lords, Hoover affiliates, motorcycle gang leaders, and other organized crime figures. From federal RICO indictments and international manhunts to life sentences and multi-agency investigations, these are the stories of how power was built, how violence escalated, and how many of these leaders ultimately fell. These are real cases, real investigations, and real consequences.
Today, we're diving into the story of some of Trenton's most notorious Blood Street gang members who are now beginning to serve time in state prison. These gang members, part of the violent 79 trace set, have been involved in a range of illegal activities including firearms trafficking, drug distribution, and promoting violence over a span of 5 years. Earl Burnett, the 29-year-old leader of the 79 trace set of the Bloods, and his underling, 35-year-old Doris Jackson, have both received hefty prison sentences earlier this month for their roles in this violent racketeering organization. They were among the 20 defendants indicted in April 2014 on charges related to racketeering and gang criminality. Their investigation uncovered the illicit activities of the 793 Blood set, led by Burnett, which included attempted murder, robbery, burglary, witness tampering, drug distribution, and the unlawful transport of firearms from October 2008 to April 2013. Each of the indicted gang members was accused of participating in these criminal activities to gain money and power for the Bloods enterprise. Prosecutors noted that most of the defendants charged in the indictment were already in custody for underlying offenses. Earl Burnett, initially indicted on first-degree racketeering, gang criminality, and promoting organized street crime, Burnett pleaded guilty last month to a single count of first-degree racketeering. On November 17, he received a 12-year prison sentence. Burnett must serve 85% of his sentence before becoming eligible for parole. After serving his time, he will be under 5 years of parole supervision, as ordered by Mercer County Superior Court Judge Robert Billmeyer. Burnett has a prior criminal history and received 1,836 days of jail credit for being locked up from November 7, 2012 to November 16, 2017. This story is a stark reminder of the persistent and dangerous nature of gang activity in our communities. The 79 trace set of the Bloods, under Burnett's leadership, terrorized Trenton for years. Japet Lopez, aka King Japet, 33, of Newark, and another ring member have pleaded guilty today before Superior Court Judge Nancy Civilli in Essex County. Japet Lopez, who controlled the racketeering enterprise, faces a recommended sentence of 15 years in state prison, including 7 years of parole ineligibility. Japet and Keel Lopez held top leadership positions in the Newark chapter of the Almighty Latin King and Queen Nation Street Gang. Japet Lopez was the Latin King's second crown or cacique and was a former third crown or warlord, acting as head of security. Colonel Patrick Callahan, acting superintendent of the New Jersey State Police, said, "The leaders of this Latin King's gang were so cold and ruthless. They viciously beat their own members who fell out of line and were willing to kill to defend their drug-dealing turf." Japet Lopez, Keel Lopez, Carlos Rodriguez, and 3 other men, Justin Rodriguez, Israel Carreras, and Julio Benabi, were charged in connection with the criminal restraint and attempted armed robbery of a member of a rival gang, the Trinitarios. They allegedly dragged the victim into the basement of an apartment building at 223 Mount Prospect Avenue in northern Newark, a stronghold for the Latin Kings, where they restrained and beat him. During the incident, Luis Aliquin, a Latin Kings gang member, was shot and killed in a stairwell by individuals suspected to be associates of the robbery victim who came looking for him. The victim managed to escape through a back door when shots rang out. During the investigation, surveillance captured sales of hundreds of waxfuls of heroin and crack cocaine by members of the drug ring at 223 Mount Prospect Avenue. Additional surveillance at May 38th Street, where Keel Lopez lived with his girlfriend Yuritsa Perez, also charged, captured sales of hundreds of vials of drugs. Search warrants executed at these locations and other residences of gang members led to the seizure of 4 handguns, including 2 defaced guns, drugs and copies of the Latin Kings Manifesto, and other gang literature and paraphernalia. This story highlights the persistent and dangerous influence of the Latin Kings in Newark and the tireless efforts of law enforcement to dismantle these criminal enterprises. Today, we're diving into the shocking and violent end of Bayshine Leary, a former leader of the Bloods gang in Trenton, New Jersey. Leary was shot dead by a casino security guard in Florida after he randomly opened fire inside the gambling hall. Let's get into the details of this dramatic and deadly incident. Bayshine Leary, 42, met his end at about 3 a.m. on Saturday at the Q Time 777 in Lake City, Florida, located about an hour west of Jacksonville. Authorities reported that Leary was involved in a dispute at the casino. After being asked to leave, he initially complied but returned shortly after with a firearm. Witnesses told investigators that Leary pointed his gun at a woman inside the casino and attempted to shoot her at point-blank range. Fortunately, the gun malfunctioned. In a fit of rage, he began firing randomly throughout the casino. A security guard quickly engaged him, leading to an exchange of gunfire. Leary was the only person hit and died at the scene. The Columbia County Sheriff's Office is investigating the involvement of a second person who was with Leary at the time. Leary had a Lake City address, but it's unclear how long he had been in Florida. The Sheriff's Office confirmed they had no prior contact with him. Leary's past is riddled with violence and crime. In the mid-2000s, during a time of rampant gang violence in Trenton, Leary was a leader of the gangster Killer Bloods, also known as G. Shine. His criminal record includes a 2005 incident where he was tangentially involved in a shooting aboard an NJ Transit bus in Trenton. This attack wounded a rival gang member and a 12-year-old girl from Hamilton. Leary was arrested the day after the shooting with Leon Butta McClendon, the actual shooter, and claimed ownership of the 9mm gun used in the crime. He later pleaded guilty to a firearm charge and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. After serving his sentence, Leary's violent streak continued. In 2012, he shot a man in Trenton and was sentenced to another 5 years in prison, being released in May 2016. Later that year, state parole officers charged him with possessing a firearm in his home during a mandated visit. This tragic end to Bayshine Leary's life is a stark reminder of the relentless violence associated with gang activity. From his days as a gang leader in Trenton to his violent demise in a Florida casino, Leary's story is a testament to the destructive path of gang involvement. Vincent Young, the notorious leader of the Fruittown and Brick City Brems, a violent subset of the Blood Street Gang. Young's journey from Los Angeles to New Jersey and his control over the gang both inside and outside prison is a tale of power, crime, and ultimate downfall. In the early 1970s, the Bloods gang was formed in Los Angeles, California. Over time, the Bloods expanded beyond LA, creating subgroups or sets identified by specific streets, neighborhoods, or areas. One of these sets, known as the Fruittown Brims, or FTB, was established in Los Angeles. Vincent Young, a member of this set, played a significant role in its expansion. In 1993, Young traveled to New Jersey, where he killed someone he believed threatened the Bloods. Convicted of aggravated manslaughter, he was sentenced to a New Jersey state prison term. While incarcerated at East Jersey State Prison in Rahway, Young founded and led a New Jersey-based set of the Fruittown Brims. After being transferred to Northern State Prison in Newark, he recruited fellow inmates, including Altaric Gums, to join his set. Gums, from Essex County, New Jersey, was promoted by Young to a leadership position. By 1999, Gums received permission from Young to start a subset called the Brick City Brims, which operated primarily in Essex County. Despite Gums' leadership, Young maintained control over this subset, enforcing strict protocols and demanding loyalty and financial support from its members. Initially, the Fruittown and Brick City Brims operated primarily within New Jersey prisons. However, as members were released, they established operations and engaged in criminal activities across New Jersey, including Jersey City, Newark, and Paterson. Even as the gang expanded outside of prison, Young and Gums continued to control their operations from behind bars. Vincent Young, now 42, stood in shackles before a federal judge in Newark, apologizing to the many victims harmed by his gang's crimes. Entering the courtroom surrounded by U.S. Marshals, Young made it clear that he had been the highest-ranking member of the Fruittown and Brick City Brims set for much longer than prosecutors had alleged. He proudly declared, "In '94, I was already Triple OG," referring to his title, Triple Original Gangster, among gang members and associates who both feared and revered him. While pleading guilty to an extensive racketeering conspiracy, Young admitted to leading the gang set using strict West Coast principles. He ordered the slayings of members who cooperated with authorities, tagging them as food, despite his claims of maturity and his argument that he wouldn't be a risk to reoffend. District Judge Stanley R. Chesler sentenced him to 188 months in prison. The judge's primary concern was that Young conducted the racketeering enterprise while already serving time in state prison. According to U.S. Attorney Paul J. Fishman, Young was the lead defendant in a 52-page indictment from January 2011, which included 14 other reputed members of the Fruittown and Brick City Brims. The indictment alleged that Young directed gang members and associates, both in and out of prison, in committing various crimes, including murder, kidnapping, aggravated assault, robbery, bribery, extortion, drug trafficking, and witness intimidation. Vincent Young pleaded guilty to conspiracy to violate the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, admitting to distributing drugs. All 15 indicted defendants have pleaded guilty. This story of Vincent Young is a stark reminder of the dangerous influence of gang leaders and the extensive efforts required to bring them to justice. His tale of power and control from behind bars highlights the ongoing battle against organized crime.
Check in. Gotta check in. Gotta
Straight
check.
like that.
I can't stress it. Gotta check in.
No question.
You know what we mean. Gotta check in.
No question
It's
about
your boy
that.
Castor Troy, man. We get busy out here.
No toes, no easy path.
The Purple Boys. Your bad can't help you either. Your bad can't help you.
Yesterday, right after a federal grand jury returned his indictment, federal agents arrested Corey Hamlet, the leader of the Grape Street Crips, along with 3 other alleged gang members. The indictment, which has 28 counts, charges Hamlet with conspiracy to commit racketeering, violent crimes in aid of racketeering, drug trafficking, and other crimes.
This your boy Castor Troy. Baby Loop, 103rd, Jordan down. We got a message. We Jersey. We got an issue for you, Chief.
I got an issue for you. You disrespect my block, all headshots. I ain't playing with you. South over Sosa, Shoot on sight.
Now, everybody know what it is. Woo-hoo! That's what we do.
Today, we're exploring the incredible story of Corey Hamlet, also known as Sea Blaze, Blaze, Blizzy, and Castor Troy. At 41, this longtime leader of the Grape Street Crips in Newark, New Jersey, has finally faced justice. Sentenced to 2 concurrent life terms in prison, Hamlet's criminal reign involved 6 murders, an attempted murder, drug trafficking, and firearms offenses, all part of a larger racketeering conspiracy. Corey Hamlet, from Bullville, New Jersey, was convicted in July 2018 after a 2-month trial. District Judge Madeline Cox Arleo handed down the sentence, marking the end of an era for one of Newark's most violent street gangs. Hamlet's journey to this point began in November 2016, when he was charged in a 22-count indictment. This massive case targeted 14 members and associates of the Grape Street Crips, accusing them of 7 murders, numerous attempted murders, and other violent and drug trafficking crimes. 12 of the 14 defendants have been convicted, with 2 still awaiting trial. But the story doesn't end there. Back in May 2015, a coordinated takedown resulted in the arrest of 68 members and associates of the Grape Street Crips. These individuals faced charges of drug trafficking, physical assaults, and witness intimidation. Out of those 68, 66 have been convicted, with charges still pending against 2. U.S. Attorney Craig Carpenito announced, "Today's sentencing marks the end of Corey Hamlet's reign of terror on the streets of Newark." Nearly 70 members of this violent criminal organization have been removed from the streets, making Newark a safer place. Special Agent in Charge Gregory W. Airy of the Newark FBI added, "Corey Hamlet chose to order others to kill, and now he can serve time for the gang. This conduct will not be tolerated, and today's sentence should send a message that we will pursue and prosecute members of violent street gangs." The DA's Special Agent in Charge, Valerie A. Nickerson, emphasized, "The sentencing of Corey Hamlet closes the chapter on one of Newark's most violent offenders. Residents can be confident that law enforcement will continue to pursue those who choose to violate the rule of law." So, what exactly did Corey Hamlet and the Grape Street Crips do? For years, they engaged in murder, robbery, extortion, and drug trafficking throughout Newark. Hamlet's orders alone resulted in 6 murders. The trial revealed numerous violent acts, some targeting rival gang members and others aimed at Grape Street Crips members Hamlet saw as threats. One such story involves a long-running dispute between Hamlet and rival Almalik Anderson. After an attempted truce at Short Hills Mall, Hamlet used Instagram to accuse Anderson of cooperating with law enforcement. Following Hamlet's orders, 4 gang members then ambushed Anderson's car, nearly killing him and his passenger. But Hamlet's vengeance didn't stop there. He ordered the murder of Anwar West, the gang member who had tried to broker peace. Co-defendant Rashin Washington left West alone in a Jeep Cherokee, knowing another gang member would shoot West in the head. Hamlet also targeted Maurice Green, Anderson's brother. On March 3, 2014, Hamlet, riding in a Jeep Cherokee, aimed a firearm at Green but missed the opportunity to shoot. Soon after, a car chase ensued, ending in a deadly crash. Shots fired from the Jeep Cherokee killed Green's passenger, Wesley Childs, and an innocent bystander, Velma Coutinho. Corey Hamlet's story is a stark reminder of the violent realities of gang life and the relentless efforts of law enforcement to bring criminals to justice. His conviction and life sentences highlight the devastating impact of gang violence on communities.
New tonight, police say they've dismantled a dangerous street gang in Gwinnett County.
That's right. 2 gang bosses, along with several other more gang members, are behind bars tonight.
Since January, Gwinnett County Police have arrested more than a dozen members of the 59 Brims Blood Street Gang, including 29-year-old Wanawan Wanzan, the alleged leader of the Atlanta branch of the gang, and Marlon Smith, the so-called leader of the gang branch in Virginia and North Carolina.
We believe that they are responsible for several crimes.
In January 2019, significant amounts of illegal drugs.
Authorities also recovered 18 firearms, 4 of which had been reported stolen. Tamario Wise, alleged gang leader of the Jack Boys gang, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 14 additional life sentences in 290 years, according to Channel 2 Action News. Wise and co-defendant run Rambling Drive. Over the next several weeks, they committed a series of violent crimes in various locations. On October 21, they carried out another armed robbery and carjacking near Reynolds Drive, close to the Lakewood Amphitheater, followed by an armed robbery on Bond Drive near Amal Drive on October 22. They targeted a taxi driver on November 8 and an armed robbery on Pickfair Avenue near Lakewood Amphitheater. On November 11, they committed an armed robbery and carjacking on Pollard Boulevard, just south of Turner Field. Their spree continued in Buckhead, where on November 19, they robbed and carjacked a 2005 Toyota Highlander on Greenview Avenue, and the next day, November 20, they committed a similar crime on Ferncliff Road. The violence escalated on November 21, when they robbed a victim on Park Avenue in the Polar Rock neighborhood. The following was beaten and kicked to his demise while being beat into the Black Gangsta Disciples in June 2009. Police says bringing down these gang leaders helps in the fight against gang activity. That's it, not all fun and gangs. There is serious time and punishment involved in this, said Albany Police Sergeant Pritesh Patel. About a dozen people have been implicated in Richardson's demise in an investigation that has run 2 years. 5 men are scheduled to stand trial for Richardson's demise July 18th. 6 other suspected gang members have already entered plea deals and are supposed to testify against the other defendants.
Top story tonight at 11, the founder of the Mafia criminal street gang in Middle Georgia was sentenced to the maximum prison term allowed by law for illegally possessing a firearm. 45-year-old Alfonso Clyde will spend the next 15 years behind bars, followed by 3 years of probation. Clyde pleaded guilty to 1 count of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon in April. The founder of the Macon Mafia gang was arrested in 2023, according to court documents.
The founder of the Mafia criminal street gang and man accused of aiding in 2023 Bibb jail escape is facing up to 15 years in prison for illegally possessing a firearm, according to United States Attorney's Office, Middle District of Georgia. 45Bibb County Sheriff's Office and Jones County Sheriff's Office arrested him on October 8, 2023. They found a digital scale with a white powdery substance in the front seat of the SUV that he was driving. They also found a Taurus G2S 9mm handgun inside the glove box. In November, Sheriff David Davis said the Mafia, including Clyde, aided in the Bibb County jail escape in October 2023. He's a particularly high-ranking member of the Mafia organization, Davis said. Now he's facing federal charges in connection to his involvement with Mr. Barnwell and in the escape.
The leader of a serial armed robbery crew has been sentenced to life in prison after violent restaurant robberies across Gwinnett County, all happening in 2017. Demetrius Sims was given 4 consecutive life sentences plus 90 years. Police say for weeks, Sims led a crew of bandits who set up restaurants to be robbed. In one of those incidents, Sims shot a manager of a pizza store in Mountain Park.
Demetrius Mark. On October 4, Sims set up the robbery of a Papa John's delivery driver at the Vines Apartments in Norcross, using his own phone to place the order. When police later broadcast Sims' phone number to alert restaurants, Sims shifted back to robbing restaurants in person. On October 9, Sims shot the manager of Marco's. Wade's gang, the 1831 Piru Bloods, is a local branch of the nationwide Piru Street gang that originated in Compton, California in the 1960s. In July 2021, authorities executed a search warrant at Wade's apartment on Jennings Mill Parkway. Wade attempted to escape by jumping from a 3rd-story window, but was quickly apprehended by a police K-9 unit. Inside the apartment, law enforcement officers seized multiple drugs, a Glock 19 handgun equipped with an illegal auto-sear switch, converting it into a fully automatic machine gun, was found in Wade's bedroom dresser, along with a 30-round extended magazine and a 50-round drum magazine. Wade admitted to keeping a weapon for protection. Additionally, officers recovered other firearms and a kilo press used for compressing drugs for distribution. Wade confessed to buying and selling large quantities of Fenty and other drugs in the Athens area.
Rhodes gang members was sentenced to prison after pleading guilty to a vicious gang attack that happened 3 years ago.
Those individuals were accused of leaving a 20-year-old woman for and putting her then 2-year-old in danger.
The last of her offenders was sentenced to prison, and that's 34-year-old Brandon Winnigan, who was sentenced to life in prison yesterday. He was charged with a handful of crimes, including aggravated malicious wounding, child neglect, and doing a criminal act for a
gang members involved in the April 2020 attack and maiming of a 21-year-old Norfolk mother who wanted to leave the gang are heading to prison.
We hear a lot of talk about gangs. This was a real gang.
This is Norfolk Commonwealth attorney Ramin Fadahi.
That engaged in one of the most brutal and violent attacks that I have encountered in my career.
The hours-long mob attack involved the woman being beat.
The Rolling 20s Neighborhood Bloods are a predominantly African-American street gang based in the West Adams area on the west side of South Los Angeles, California. Established in the 1970s, they are among the largest blood gangs in South Los Angeles. The territory spans from Vermont Avenue to Arlington Avenue, bordered by Jefferson Boulevard and Pico Boulevard. Although primarily African American, the gang has historically included a substantial number of Belizean members, with some Mexican American involvement, particularly during the 1980s and 1990s. According to recently released court documents, local members of the Rolling 20s Outlaw Bloods, a set of a larger national gang, were involved in an attempted deletion of a woman after she was recruited. Documents identify Brandon Cesar Winnigan as the leader of the local group, with Portia Lawless Hodges as the highest-ranking female member. A stipulation of facts filed Tuesday in Norfolk Circuit Court details that Arrington was jumped in or physically assaulted by female gang members as part of her initiation. In the days that followed, she received multiple violent punishments for failing to correctly recite gang information or obey orders. On April 23, 2020, Arrington went to one of the gang's main meeting spots on Glen Myrtle Avenue for a planned movie night with her 2-year-old son. After another punishment from female gang members, the victim told Winnigan she wanted out. This angered the gang members, who then assaulted her further. Hodges allegedly insisted that the victim should be deleted because she knew too much. When the victim tried to leave, DeAndre Watkins reportedly dragged her from her car and back into the apartment. Inside, gang members attacked the victim until she lost consciousness. While the attack was ongoing, Hodges and other members took the victim's phone to delete incriminating evidence, including social media accounts and gang-related information. Later, Tavares, Flash, Mitchell, and Watkins reportedly loaded the victim into her own car, driving her a few blocks away, where she was left in the driver's seat after being shot multiple times, including a bullet wound that started near her eye. The victim was eventually found by a concerned neighbor, her face swollen beyond recognition. Her son was later dropped off unharmed in Westgate and was placed in foster care due to his exposure to the traumatic events. 10 individuals were arrested in connection with the attack on the victim. On December 19, Brandon Winnigan, age 34, received a life sentence plus 38 years after pleading guilty to several charges, including aggravated malicious wounding, child neglect, and gang-related criminal activity. The leader of a street gang operating in Virginia's rural northern neck, Shadanta Latif Bean, 26, has been sentenced to 10 years in federal prison after selling a firearm to a federal informant. Bean, who pled guilty to possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, also faces local charges related to a shooting at a Raceway gas station in Tappahannock. According to an agreed-upon statement of facts in his plea deal, Bean negotiated the sale of a submachine gun equipped with a 50-round drum magazine through multiple messages with an FBI informant in September 2020. On October 1, 2020, Bean exchanged the gun for $1,400 in cash, unaware that the transaction had been documented by the FBI. 2 days later, on October 3, Bean's aunt reported the firearm missing to the police, not knowing the weapon was already in FBI custody. She was the original buyer of the gun and informed the police that it had been taken from her vehicle. When asked by law enforcement for the serial number, she reached out to Bean, who then contacted the FBI informant for the information, inadvertently further implicating himself and his aunt in the illegal sale. Bean had previously been identified by local prosecutors as a leader of the Mary Point Boys, a gang accused of terrorizing the community. Despite this, federal agents did not arrest Bean immediately. The Lancaster County Sheriff's Office briefly detained him on October 12, 2020 for providing false identification to an officer and driving without a license, but he was soon released without federal charges. Later that month, on October 31, 2020, Bean was reportedly involved in a shooting at the Raceway gas station in Tappahannock. He wasn't taken into federal custody until November 19, 2020, when he was charged with firearm possession as a felon, leading to his eventual 10-year sentence.
New this morning, a gang leader for sex trafficking will spend 32 years behind bars. Court documents say a 16-year-old girl was targeted by Pierre Smith in April of 2022. Smith met her and took explicit photos of her.
A Portsmouth leader of the Imperial Gangster Bloods has been sentenced to 32 years in prison on charges related to trafficking and exploitation, according to the Department of Justice. Pierre de Romeo Smith, 40, of Portsmouth, received this sentence for trafficking a minor, creating illicit materials, intending to distribute controlled substances, and unlawful firearm possession. According to court records and trial evidence, Smith initially met the minor on April 30, 2022, and took exploitative photos of her. For the next 3 weeks, Smith arranged numerous meetings for the individual across the Hampton Roads area, scheduling up to 30 appointments a night, according to DOJ records. He reportedly supplied substances to keep her alert and retained the proceeds from these encounters. In May 2022, the Virginia Beach Police Department, during an undercover operation at a hotel, intercepted and arrested Smith in the hotel parking garage after he contacted the victim. Officers discovered controlled substances and a Glock handgun in Smith's vehicle, despite his status as a convicted felon prohibiting firearm possession. Following his arrest, the DOJ reports that Smith greenlit the individual, allegedly approving an order to harm her. The victim informed authorities of this order, which was corroborated by 2 separate confidential sources. Smith allegedly issued the order to prevent the individual from testifying against him, according to DOJ sources. He was ultimately convicted by a federal jury on April 6, 2023.
A safer place today because of the conviction of 3 Rollin' 30s gang members, including the gang leader, all who will spend an upward of 40 years behind bars.
Investigators say Rollin' 30s gang members DeMonte Mack, Trayvon Casey, and the gang's leader Sean Garant will spend up to 4 decades in federal prison. The 3 men are responsible for the murder of 17-year-old Nicholas Lee in 2017 and Markel Gertie in 2018.
The Rollin' 30's original Harlem Crips, also known as the Dirt Gang, are an active African-American multi-generational street gang located on the west side around the Jefferson Park region of South Los Angeles, California. Their history dates back as far as the 1960s, making them one of the longest-standing Crip neighborhood in Los Angeles, which runs from Jefferson Boulevard to Martin Luther King Boulevard, between Crenshaw Boulevard and Normandy Ave. Sean Denzel Garrett, also known as Harlem Dank, age 31, pleaded guilty in November 2021 to racketeering conspiracy and conspiracy to commit a deletion. Garrett was sentenced to 37 years in federal prison. Roanoke Police Chief Sam Roman called the case a long and difficult process and noted the personal impact on many in law enforcement and the community. While we cannot bring back the young man who met his demise, this outcome hopefully provides some peace to his loved ones. We hope this sends a clear message to those perpetuating violence in our community. Garrett, Casey, Levacy, and Mack were members of the Rollin' 30s Crips, also known as the Dirt Gang, a national street gang active in cities across the U.S. The Roanoke set operated mainly in northwest Roanoke, particularly around the Lansdowne neighborhood. Garrett admitted that he, along with Casey, Mack, Levacy, and others, had conspired in violent criminal activity as part of a pattern of racketeering. Garrett ordered the demise of a 17-year-old gang member after the gang member had attempted to warn a targeted individual and helped him evade harm. The gang member's warning allowed the person to escape, but ultimately led to the gang member demise when Casey and Mack chased and fatally shot him. In a separate incident 8 months later, on February 9, 2018, Casey arranged to meet with Markel Gertie. When Gertie arrived, Casey shot him in the chest, stole his belongings, and fled. Although Gertie managed to drive away, he later met his demise from the gunshot wound. Thanks for watching.
So that's why everybody always say double I. Inglewood, Illtown was the first set on the East Coast with original West Coast.
Brother, look what we caught your brother. Your brother right here. Your brother right here. That's your ass brother right there. Now come holler at me. And I'm about to take his money. Fat his daughter money. The $15 is That he work at the garbage truck like we don't know you get off at 8 o'clock. Huh? Stop playing with me. And he ain't do shit. Guess what? He really my man. But since that's your brother's Look, butter.
The investigation is ongoing into Friday's fatal shooting of a Newark police officer. 26-year-old Detective Joseph Azcana, a 5-year veteran of the force, was investigating illegal gun activity in the city when he was shot to death before he could get out of his car. Authorities say a second officer was also shot and remains in the hospital. Prosecutors have charged a 14-year-old. Authorities say the teenager, whose name hasn't been released, was hospitalized with injuries from the exchange of gunfire and is expected to survive.
In April 2025, law enforcement in New Jersey dealt a significant blow to one of Newark's most violent and deeply entrenched street gangs, the Queen Street Double I Bloods. This Bloods-affiliated crew, with roots tracing back to Los Angeles, had grown into a sprawling drug trafficking network responsible for a wave of violence in Newark's North Ward. At the center of this operation was Rabiyah Sorey, a rare but powerful female leader who commanded the gang's drug distribution and enforcement efforts. The investigation not only exposed the gang's ruthless tactics, but also revealed a harrowing personal tragedy. Rabiyah's own 14-year-old son was charged with fatally shooting a Newark police officer, underscoring the devastating cycle of violence that plagues many urban communities. This video dives deep into the gang's origins, criminal enterprise, violent enforcement strategies, and the ensuing indictments that aim to dismantle one of New Jersey's most dangerous organizations.
Road Dogs, we didn't go to Cali looking for Bloods, Crips, or anything. We just wanted a West Coast group. They could have been from the Bay or anything.
Wow.
But the Road Dogs just so happened to be from Inglewood.
Right.
And they was Damus.
Right.
So when they came back, they just told stories in the hood and everything else. So that's why everybody always say Double I, Inglewood, Illtown, was the first set on the East Coast with original West Coast backing. It wasn't just...
According to New Jersey authorities, the Double I Queen Street Blood Gang is a Bloods-affiliated street crew with origins tracing back to Los Angeles. Federal court filings detail how, in 1993, members of the LA-based Queen Street Bloods sought to unify several East Orange sets such as the Gutter Rats and Steel click under a single banner known as Double I. The name is said to blend Inglewood, the California home base of Queen Street, with Illtown, a nickname for East Orange. By the 2000s, the Double I Bloods had grown into one of New Jersey's most powerful blood sets, operating a large-scale drug trafficking network and linked to numerous shootings and deletions, according to a 2013 Department of Justice report. That original structure was heavily disrupted by federal RICO prosecutions in the mid to late 2000s. However, law enforcement now says a successor faction has re-emerged, this time with a strong presence in Newark.
The gang allegedly operated with a hierarchical structure with clearly defined roles, codes of conduct, and a willingness to use deadly force to protect their territory, settle scores, and fuel their narcotics business. At the top of this organization was Rabiyah Sorey, who is alleged to have issued orders, directed retaliatory shootings, and managed the flow of guns and drugs into New Jersey communities. The gang allegedly had supervisors who would work 3 daily shifts on the drug set, morning, afternoon, and night.
Prosecutors described the current Double I operation as a bold, open-air drug market in Newark's North Ward. The crew's Newark set operated out of the 200 block of North 9th Street, openly selling drugs in broad daylight. According to court filings, alleged leader Rabiyah Sorey oversaw the enterprise with a tight circle of at least 9 core members known internally as the 9 Creepers, along with additional associates. Each had defined roles. Some acted as street-level dealers, others as set supervisors, trusted advisors, runners, or shooters to protect the turf. The gang also maintained a drug production stash house at Sorey's home in Elizabeth, which she shared with co-defendant Nicole Jones. When police raided the property on March 24, 2025, they seized 91 grams of raw H, custom H stamps for branding, nearly $17,000 in cash, and a full array of drug packaging materials. Prosecutors alleged that the Double I Newark set was far more than a drug-dealing crew. They maintained control of their territory through relentless violence and intimidation. Investigators have linked a series of shootings confirmed through matching ballistics directly to alleged female leader Rabiyah Sorey and her associates. On April 19, 2023, Sorey was reportedly caught on surveillance video during a road rage incident in Irvington. Moments later, she allegedly ordered two men to open fire on another vehicle, injuring one person. Other acts of violence attributed to the gang include the July 21, 2023 shooting of a female associate over an unpaid drug debt, an April 21, 2024 domestic dispute in which Sorey allegedly fired a gun into the street during an altercation with her twin sister Hadiyah, and a July 22, 2024 drive-by on Newark's North 12th Street where Sorey and several gunmen allegedly sprayed bullets at a man identified as a C. In September 2024, police recovered a black Springfield XD-30 pistol from a gang member's car, later confirming it had been used in several of these incidents. Wiretaps also captured Sorey arranging for additional assault weapons to be funneled into the gang's arsenal by late 2024. Prosecutors claimed Sorey even turned to social media as a weapon, posting threats toward rivals, and at one point allegedly holding a suspect's brother hostage to send a chilling message. The defendants in this case are charged with running an organized, brazen drug trafficking network that operated out in the open in a Newark neighborhood, said DCJ Director Teresa Hilton, noting that violent reprisals were a core part of the gang's discipline and territorial control. Rabiyah twin Sorey, identified as the alleged ringleader, Sorey's indictment spans drug trafficking, racketeering, weapons, and assault charges. Hadiyah Sorey, Rabiyah's twin sister, is charged as a co-leader of the same enterprise. The indictment lists Hadiyah for first-degree racketeering and second-degree conspiracy to distribute.
Detective Joseph Escana, a 5-year veteran of the Newark Police Department, was just 26 years old. His alleged killer, a 14-year-old.
It was a wild shootout between police and an armed 14-year-old boy Friday evening. The barrage of bullets shattering school windows and sending kids running down Broadway. Detective Escana was working with the feds to rid the streets of illegal guns.
Just 2 weeks before the federal indictment, the demise of a Newark police officer underscored the violent reach of the Double I Newark set. On March 7, 2025, Detective Joseph Escona was ambushed and fatally shot during an illegal weapon sting in Newark's North Ward. Police arrested a 14-year-old suspect at the scene, charging him. Authorities say the teen, who survived being shot by police during the arrest, remains hospitalized. Federal prosecutors have already moved to try him as an adult, with U.S. Attorney Elena have a warning. If you shoot a police officer, you will be tried as an adult. The suspect's family connections to the gang became clear almost immediately. News reports identified him as the son of alleged gang leader Rabiyah Sorey and the nephew of her twin sister, Hadiyah Sorey. Local outlets noted Rabiyah's long criminal history, including her identification as a Bloods gang member dating back to a 2010 drug raid in Elizabeth. Authorities also reported that the boy had recently moved from Georgia to Newark and already faced serious prior arrests. The indictment of the Queen Street Double I gang and the tragic deletion of Detective Joseph Escona mark a critical moment in Newark's ongoing battle against violent crime. The extensive charges against Rabiyah Sorey and her associates reveal a well-organized criminal network willing to use intimidation and deadly force to maintain control over their turf. The involvement of Sorey's teenage son in the officer's shooting adds a heartbreaking dimension, illustrating how cycles of gang violence and trauma can engulf entire families and communities. While the legal process unfolds, the hope remains that this crackdown will not only disrupt the gang's operations, but also serve as a catalyst for deeper interventions to break the grip of violence in Newark's neighborhoods. Ultimately, The story of the Queen Street Double I gang stands as a stark reminder of the challenges faced by law enforcement and communities striving for safety and justice.
Operation Too Close for Comfort, a pun off the alleged location of the criminal enterprise, the Comfort Inn on Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard in Brooklyn. Focus became centered around the alleged ringleader David Brown, who lived at the hotel and at one time controlled an entire floor of rooms there.
He used these rooms for drug sales, to hide drugs, to hide money, and for the sex trafficking victims to use for what the gang called their dates.
Resulting in the arrest of Brown and 14 other gang members. A number of women were also saved.
Many of the women involved in this case were addicted to drugs themselves, and they were trafficked in the same way that the drugs were trafficked in this case.
Along with drugs, the gang was using the hotel rooms for drugs and sex.
Brown and Copeland forced women to engage in sex trafficking in exchange for their rooms and for drugs.
Many of the women involved in this case were addicted to drugs themselves, and they were trafficked in the same way that the drugs were trafficked in this case.
The leader of Operation Too Close for Comfort in Maryland was David Tico Brown. David Tico Brown was identified by Maryland authorities as the leader of a criminal organization dismantled in Operation Too Close for Comfort, a 2019-2020 probe into drug distribution and trafficking. Investigators said Brown ran the ring out of a Comfort Inn and Suites on Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard in Brooklyn and Arundel County, effectively controlling an entire floor of rooms. From there, he and his co-conspirators sold drugs, stashed cash and narcotics, and arranged trade dates, often exploiting women struggling with addiction. According to prosecutors, Brown also leveraged hotel staff and associates to avoid detection and keep the operation supplied. After an 8-month investigation that included undercover buys and surveillance, Brown and 14 associates were indicted in September 2020 on gang participation, drug distribution, and trafficking charges. Raids at the hotel and other locations recovered multiple firearms and sizable quantities of narcotics, along with 8 vehicles and about $27,000 in cash. Officials said the group coerced vulnerable women in exchange for drugs, money, or lodging. While the Attorney General called the indictments a major strike against organized crime, Brown and his co-defendants were presumed innocent unless proven guilty. Subsequent court filings note that Brown and an associate entered guilty pleas in 2021.
The target was a gang. It was called the Murderland Mafia Pyro, or MMP. Members operated in northwest Baltimore City and neighboring county neighborhoods. So Windsor Mill, Gwen Oak, Howard Park, and Woodlawn and Liberty Heights, that entire area lived in fear, authorities say. And right now, MMP ran drugs, they ran guns, they laundered money at Maryland casinos, and the feds have pegged 5 non-fatal shootings and homicides on the group, but think they might be responsible for at least a dozen more. And this morning,
Dante Bailey, known as Gutta, Almighty, and Wolf, founded and led the Murderland Mafia Pyros, a violent Baltimore area subset of the Bloods. Under Bailey, the MMP, also called the Mob or Mobsters, terrorized neighborhoods in northwest Baltimore City and Baltimore County through relentless drug dealing and violence. He structured the crew like La Cosa Nostra. Bailey sat at the top as the Dawn, with bosses, capos, lieutenants, and soldiers beneath him, all bound by a strict, Omert-style code demanding absolute loyalty and lethal retaliation against informants. To climb the ranks, members were expected to fight like you are ready to die, with some earning lightning bolt tattoos after committing deletions for the mob. Bailey enforced rules like retaliation is a must and ordered death for anyone who cooperated with authorities. In 2019, after a 6-week federal trial, Bailey was convicted of racketeering and drug conspiracy. Prosecutors showed he presided over a criminal enterprise responsible for multiple and shootings, extortion, witness tampering and retaliation, and large-scale drug trafficking, including at least 5 targeted shootings, one of them fatal in 2015. That November, a federal judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole. Officials noted the multi-year investigation seized 42 firearms and led to convictions of 25 MMP members. Bailey's downfall following earlier indictments of more than 24 associates crippled one of Maryland's most notorious Bloods factions and revealed how his Murderland Mafia operated like a miniature mafia, complete with hierarchy, ritual, and blood oath violence.
33 members of a criminal enterprise accused of trafficking drugs. Investigation beginning back in November 2021, when officials say they noticed an uptick in violence within the city's western and southwestern districts, including neighborhoods like Shipley Hill, Booth Boyd, and along Fayette Street. Investigators detailing detectives used undercover buys, video surveillance, and wiretaps to uncover the criminal enterprise and build a case. Of the 33 members identified, the police commissioner says 12 are repeat violent offenders and 30 have previous arrests.
James Big Man Brunson and Ernest Tidy Hudson ran a large drug trafficking organization in West and Southwest Baltimore, with strongholds in Shipley Hill, Booth Boyd, and along Fayette Street. After a 16-month investigation, prosecutors secured a sweeping 33-defendant indictment in early 2023, outlining a crew that moved drugs and enforced its turf with intimidation and gun violence. Officials described a complex hierarchy of suppliers, managers, street lieutenants, and retail dealers backed by assaults and shootings to protect the trade. On May 7, 2022, investigators say Brunson and Hudson themselves attempted to delete a man during a dispute, illustrating the cycle of retaliation surrounding the enterprise. Both men eventually pleaded guilty to racketeering offenses. In August 2024, Hudson admitted to supervising a criminal organization, major distribution, and a weapons charge. He received 25 years, with 5 years to serve without parole. In March 2025, Brunson pleaded to conspiracy and firearm counts. He was sentenced to 20 years with 15 suspended 5 years to serve without parole, followed by probation.
Jeremy Quinton Lewis, the named leader of the 59 Hoover Gang, a subset of the notorious Crips that officials say had staked its claim in Columbia, Maryland, found guilty of and other gang-related charges. All 8 members of the 59 Hoover Gang, indicted 2 years ago, now convicted. Its leader, Lewis, the latest. Investigation into the 59 Hoover Gang dates back to 2020, when officials say investigators determined the gang was responsible for committing the most serious crimes in Howard County.
Jaden Ely was his mother's pride and joy. He loved football and played all 4 years at Oakland Mills High School, but his young life was cut short when he was shot behind this Exxon next to the Long Reach Village Center. He later died at shock trauma. Now, prosecutors say Jeremy Lewis, a member of the 59 Hoover Gang, has been convicted of murder and other crimes. It does not stop the pain for Ely's mother. Ely's mom says she still does not know why her son was targeted. Now, all she has are memories.
Jeremy Quinton Lewis led the 59 Hoovers in Columbia, Maryland, an offshoot linked to the nationwide Hoover criminals network. In 2024, a Howard County jury convicted him of first-degree deletion, gang leadership, and related offenses tied to a wave of violence from 2020 to 2021. Prosecutors said Lewis both ordered and personally carried out attacks to expand the gang's territory and reputation for brutality. One pivotal incident came on May 30, 2021, when Lewis orchestrated the shooting of 21-year-old Jaden Ely behind a Columbia gas station. Ely died days later. Lewis and 7 lieutenants were indicted in early 2022 as part of a countywide violent crimes initiative. While 7 co-defendants pleaded guilty and received terms ranging from 4 to 18 years, Lewis went to trial. In February 2024, jurors found him guilty of deletion, first-degree assault, multiple firearms offenses, and organizing a criminal gang resulting in death. The judge imposed life without the possibility of parole plus 100 years. Officials said the sentence reflected the scale of harm and would deter future gang violence. With Lewis the last of the indicted members brought to justice, authorities credited interagency collaboration for closing a violent chapter in Howard County.
Acting Police Commissioner Rich Worley says back in January of this year, BPD's Group Violence Unit, which is part of the mayor's group violence reduction strategy, began investigating the Cary boys and their alleged sale of cocaine and fentanyl from Cary Street, a block within the city's long-troubled Sandtown-Winchester community. As a result, these 8 members, ranging in age from 18 to 59, were identified and nearly a dozen search warrants executed.
Raheen Gaither emerged as a key figure in the Cary Boys drug crew operating in West Baltimore's Sandtown-Winchester neighborhood. In June 2023, city officials announced indictments for Gaither and 7 associates, alleging they ran an open-air narcotics market around the 1700 block of North Cary Street, moving significant quantities of drugs. Investigators described Gaither as a supplier manager at the center of the operation. The Group Violence Unit began probing the Cary Boys in January 2023, building a case through undercover buys, surveillance, and coordinated raids. The investigation recovered 2 firearms, roughly 1,145 vials of coke, and 1,505 gel capsules of Fendi. In early June, officers executed 11 search warrants across Baltimore and nearby suburbs, seizing 7 more guns, about half a kilogram of powder coke, 890 additional coke vials, more than 3.7 kilograms of Mary, and over $200,000 in cash.
Prosecutors announced an 11-count indictment Thursday against 15 alleged gang members who've been accused of a slew of crimes connected to a drug-dealing operation in East Baltimore. Prosecutors say the charges against the suspects include 18 and 27 attempted. Investigators say it was founded as an alternative to the Black Guerrilla family gang. And according to the indictment, members routinely use social media websites to enhance the gang's status and identify and locate victims. And even when some members were locked up, prosecutors say they used jailhouse telephones to publicize the identities of persons believed to be cooperating with law enforcement to order assaults and of enemies of the enterprise. Some of the suspects have a history with police, including Rashad Nesmith. He was charged with attempted murder after off-duty police sergeant Isaac Carrington was shot back in 2019. Investigators say that was an attempted robbery.
Well, take a look. This is the man found dead near Atlanta late this afternoon, hundreds of miles from here in Baltimore, where investigators say he was the leader of the Triple C gang that's been terrorizing our city for years.
U.S. Marshals were attempting to serve an arrest warrant when they say Creek started firing at the officers and barricaded himself inside an apartment outside of Atlanta. Police say he had hostages at the time. Those people were not hurt, but it did prompt a massive emergency response, and nearby apartments were evacuated. Here's how one witness described what she saw and heard. Now, after a 3-hour standoff, police say they found Creek with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, in that indictment announced last week, officials say the Triple C gang, which Creek was allegedly the leader of, terrorized Baltimore for many years.
Gary Hoff Creek was the alleged founder and boss of the cruddy conniving Krutballs, better known as Triple C, an East Baltimore gang that emerged around 2015 as an alternative to the Black Guerrilla family. Under Creek's leadership, Triple C grew into one of Maryland's most violent crews, running open-air drug markets and enforcing its territory through intimidation and deletion. A federal indictment unsealed in May 2021 linked the gang to 18 deletions and 27 attempted deletions between 2015 and 2020, along with carjackings, robberies, and assaults. Triple C operated street-level shops in neighborhoods like Darley Park and Orchard Ridge, dealing drugs while using targeted deletions and threats to eliminate rivals and silence witnesses. Prosecutors alleged that Creek not only ordered hits, but also took contract deletions himself. Members flaunted their identity online and in rap videos, brandishing guns and warning potential informants. When federal agents moved to arrest Creek and 14 co-defendants in June 2021, he fled Maryland. Investigators traced him to an apartment in Sandy Springs, Georgia, where on June 8 he fired at officers and barricaded himself with hostages, triggering a 3-hour SWAT standoff. The siege ended when Creek died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. No officers or hostages were hurt. His death came days after he failed to surrender despite a $10,000 reward for information on his whereabouts. Prosecutors continued the case against the remaining defendants, calling Triple C's enterprise built on violence. With the other 14 indicted members in custody, officials said dismantling the gang was key to curbing the cycle of retaliatory shootings and drug-fueled bloodshed in Baltimore, and a stark reminder of how far a determined gang leader would go to evade justice.
A Montgomery County gang leader is going to be spending the next 15 years in jail as the gang begins to crumble.
Andres Cortez is the man, and among other things, he's accused of sexually assaulting a teenager.
Look closely at this image. It shows members of the Lil R gang committing a gang. You can see them flashing gang signs. What you can't see and can't hear is their 15-year-old victim begging them to stop. And you can't see this man, Andres Cortez, the leader of the gang, taking the pictures. Well, today, he got 15 years in prison for the crime, and with that sentencing, prosecutors hope the Lil R gang is wiped out.
I think when you take out a leader, that sends a real message to the gang, and I think it leaves disarray.
With Cortez's sentencing, more than 20 Lil R members with nicknames like Crazy, Carrot Top, and Narco have been found guilty. Cortez is believed to have started the gang in his Wheaton Middle School. You can still see this fading gang graffiti nearby. His undoing in this case came when a co-worker reported the gang rape video was on Cortez's phone. Police found the victim and traced the crime to this Olney townhouse belonging to a known Lil R associate.
Andres Cortez, Lil R gang leader, sentenced in Olney gang rape. Andres Bones Cortez founded and led the Lil R gang, also known as La Raza, which operated in Wheaton and nearby parts of Montgomery County, Maryland. What began in Cortez's school years grew by the late 2000s into a crew of more than 20 members tied to a string of violent and property crimes. By 2006-2010, Lil R had a reputation as a scourge of Wheaton. Cortez's downfall followed a particularly heinous 2012 attack in an Olney townhouse, where he and other gang members sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl. Instead of stopping the assault, Cortez recorded it on his phone. A coworker later discovered the video, prompting police to identify the perpetrators and track Cortez, who had fled to an address in Olney. He and multiple accomplices were arrested and charged. In November 2013, then 21 years old, Cortez pleaded guilty to a third-degree sex offense and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Prosecutors and police said removing the leader would throw the gang into disarray, and it did. By 2015, more than 20 Lil R members had been convicted, effectively breaking the crew's grip on the area. The victim told the court she believed the sentence was appropriate and expressed relief at seeing Cortez held accountable. The case underscored that serious gang activity and the coordinated law enforcement response to it exists well beyond big city borders in Maryland's suburbs. Gregory Butler, known as Gotti, Sags, and Little Dig, led the NFL gang, an organized crew named for the Normandy, Franklin, and Loudon blocks in southwest Baltimore's Edmondson Village. From 2016 to 2020, Butler oversaw a multi-state trafficking pipeline that moved drugs across Baltimore and into Virginia, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Prosecutors said the network sold well over 1 kilogram of drugs tied to multiple fatal overdoses. Butler admitted he knew customers were dying, including a 2016 Rockville case where a buyer fatally overdosed the same day. Violence underpinned the business. In his plea, Butler acknowledged paying members or associates to delete rivals, and at least one contracted deletion was carried out during the gang's reign. A December 2022 federal indictment charged Butler and numerous NFL members with racketeering and drug conspiracies. Facing extensive evidence, Butler pleaded guilty. In March 2023, a federal judge sentenced him to 30 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. He admitted directing stash houses, sourcing narcotics from multiple suppliers, and supervising the street-level distribution network. More than 30 co-defendants also pleaded guilty, receiving sentences ranging from time served to decades in prison. David Alejandro Orellana Ailman, a high-ranking leader in MS-13, was arrested on February 27, 2025, in Hyattsville, Maryland during a coordinated ICE-FBI operation. A Salvadoran national, Orellana was wanted in El Salvador on charges including firearm possession, extortion, and terrorist affiliation tied to his role in the transnational Mara Salvatrucha organization. U.S. authorities described him as a shot caller who directed multiple MS-13 clicks across the United States, Mexico, and parts of Europe, making him one of the most senior MS-13 figures active on U.S. soil. Records indicate Orellana was first documented as an MS-13 member in El Salvador in 2016 and later entered the United States unlawfully. He was briefly arrested in Maryland in 2024 on a traffic offense before investigators connected him to the outstanding Salvadoran case. Following his February 2025 arrest, he remained in ICE custody pending potential prosecution and removal. Taken together, the cases of Brown, Orellana Ailman, Bailey, Brunson and Hudson, Lewis, Gaither, Creek, Cortez, and Butler reveal consistent patterns: hierarchical structures that mimic organized crime, revenue streams anchored in drugs, and a reliance on fear witness intimidation, retaliation, and targeted attacks to hold territory. They also reveal consistent countermeasures: patient investigations, cross-jurisdictional coordination, financial seizures, and stiff federal and state sentences that remove violent actors and disrupt supply chains. For communities, the stakes are immediate: fewer guns on corners, fewer overdoses, fewer retaliatory shootings. For a documentary audience, the through line is clear: leadership matters in both crime and enforcement. When crews elevate ruthlessness to strategy, the response must be equally strategic, data-driven, collaborative, and relentless. These profiles document how that contest has played out in Maryland and why sustained, coordinated pressure is essential to keep the next wave from taking root.
The Queens DA's office, along with the NYPD, says it's taken down 11 gang members in a 3.5-year-long investigation. They are members of the Whole Block Boys and Score on Anything gangs, which are two subsets of a larger gang called the 8-Tray Moving Crips.
It was a beef about turf. That's what all this shooting is about. It's a beef about turf.
Authorities say the 57-count indictment stems from 9 shooting incidents that happened between March 2021 and December of 2023. One video shows 4 gang members shooting into a home while people were inside.
The map of the shooting.
5 of the people listed in the indictment have already been arraigned. Police are still searching for 18-year-old Sean Cole and 29-year-old Trevor Bailey. The suspects face charges ranging from conspiracy, gun possession, and attempted murder.
In one of the most significant gang busts in Queens in late 2024, prosecutors exposed 2 alleged Crip leaders at the center of a violent reign of terror across southeast Queens. Alfadi Havoc Tanis of Jamaica and Trevor T3 Bailey of St. Albans were named as the shot callers of 2 ruthless subsets under the 8-Tray Moving Crips umbrella: the Whole Block Boys, based in Hollis, and Score on Anything, operating out of South Jamaica. According to Queens District Attorney Melinda Katz, these men weren't just gang leaders, they were orchestrators of chaos. Prosecutors allege Tanis and Bailey regularly ordered subordinates to carry out targeted shootings to secure territory and intimidate rivals. Their crews unleashed gunfire in parks, playgrounds, and busy residential streets, often in broad daylight. Shockingly, the violence didn't stop with rival gangs. WBB and SOA even turned their guns on each other in internal beefs. The case against them includes chilling social media evidence, where members bragged about shootings using coded slang like spanked or popped his cherry, and referred to firearms as situations or whooped-us. Authorities seized at least 11 illegal handguns during the multi-agency investigation, and both Tanis and Bailey were indicted on first-degree conspiracy and other felony charges. If convicted, they each face life in prison. Daquan Monroe, just 17 years old at the time, was identified as the leader of the Snow Gang, a violent teen crew based in Jamaica and St. Albans, Queens. In 2014, Queens prosecutors announced a massive indictment that shook Southeast Queens' 31 members of Snow, all between the ages of 15 and 22, were charged in connection with deletion plots, armed robberies, and other violent crimes. Authorities said Monroe played a central role, allegedly ordering a string of robberies to raise bail money for himself while incarcerated. The crew had been linked to a series of shootings and retaliatory attacks against rival gangs, part of an escalating street war gripping the area.
Adenilson Velasquez Lauren was arrested on June 7th during a traffic stop on the Ohio Turnpike. He was indicted 2 weeks later by the government, accused of trafficking drugs and ordering multiple murders on Long Island. Lauren pleaded not guilty to those charges, but the judge denied him bail. His trial is expected to begin late next year or even in 2025. The arrest video has been viewed nearly 2 million times on WTOL's YouTube page. You can find more coverage of this case at WTOL.com.
Adenilson Velasquez Lauren, better known by his aliases Agreasor, Saturno, Tiny, or Paco, is accused of being a high-ranking leader within the Fulton Locos Salvatruchas, an MS-13 clique operating in Queens. In November 2024, federal prosecutors announced sweeping charges against top MS-13 figures across the country, and Lauren was one of the central names. According to court filings, Lauren allegedly personally carried out the 2016 deletion of Kenny Reyes and ordered the deletions of Eric Monge in 2020 and Oswaldo Gutierrez Medrano in 2022. The U.S. Attorney described him and others as executioners, leaders who gained and maintained rank through extreme violence and targeted assassinations. Kamal Cardwell, a known shot caller for the Wild Meta Crips in Far Rockaway, Queens, was one of the central figures in a major gang takedown back in 2018. Queens DA Richard Brown announced a 52-count indictment against 9 alleged members of the Wild Meta crew, accusing them of turning neighborhood streets into war zones. Cardwell, then 25 years old, was described as a high-ranking enforcer within the set. Prosecutors say the crew orchestrated multiple attempted murders between 2015 and 2016, targeting rivals from gangs like the 70 Gs, SOS Bloods, Edgemere Bloods, and the Flammers. The indictment detailed brazen shootouts, including drive-by shootings from moving vehicles, some dangerously close to parks and schools. Wild Meta members reportedly boasted about the violence online, using coded language like "got busy" and "spanked" to describe gunfire. At the time of his March 2018 arraignment, Cardwell was already in custody on unrelated charges. He now faces up to 25 years behind bars. During the investigation, authorities seized 11 firearms and intercepted chilling conversations that revealed just how deeply entrenched the gang's violence was in the Far Rockaway community.
I know it's gang.
Christopher Acevedo, also known as S.A., is the founder and leader of the Wood City Street Gang, based in the Woodhull neighborhood of Queens, New York. Wood City, also known as the Yellow Tape Boys, YTB, has been involved in various criminal activities, including racketeering, murder, drug trafficking, and fraud, since at least 2010. Acevedo's notoriety rose significantly after his involvement in the murder of David Hutchinson, a leader of the rival Snow Gang. This incident occurred on August 26, 2019, following the theft of a gold YTB chain from a high-ranking member of Wood City. The theft led to escalating tensions between the two gangs, which had already been engaged in a turf war marked by taunts and insults exchanged over social media. On the day of the murder, Acevedo and other Wood City members tracked the Snow Gang leader, who had posted a photo wearing the stolen chain. Acevedo shot and killed Hutchinson in broad daylight outside a deli in Queens, in what was described as a drive-by shooting. This act of violence was part of Acevedo's efforts to maintain his gang's reputation and retaliate for the theft. In May 2023, Acevedo was convicted of murder in aid of racketeering and causing death through the use of a firearm. He was subsequently sentenced to 2 concurrent life terms in prison. This case highlighted the severe consequences of gang violence and the ongoing efforts by law enforcement to combat such activities in New York. Melvi Amador.
Jonathan J.O. Garcia, a known leader within the Latin Kings Black Mob tribe in Queens, rose through the ranks with violence and intimidation. In May 2017, Garcia made headlines after he shot and deleted fellow Latin King member Joshua "Monster" Flores during a dispute at a Woodhaven playground. Prosecutors said Flores, just 23 years old, was fleeing when Garcia opened fire, all to boost his reputation and rank within the gang. The deletion wasn't random, it was a calculated move. Garcia, who had been affiliated with the Latin King since at least 2012, later bragged about the deletion while continuing to traffic drugs and operate within his clique. In June 2023, a Brooklyn federal jury found Garcia guilty of deletion in aid of racketeering, along with additional drug and racketeering charges tied to his activity with the Latin Kings. U.S. prosecutors emphasized that Garcia gunned down his victim to gain standing in one of New York's most notorious gangs. Then, in April 2024, U.S. District Judge Valerie Caproni sentenced Garcia to life in prison plus 7 years, citing his long history of gang loyalty, violence, and continued drug trafficking.
Amador Rios, also known as Little and Pinky, is a leader of the Centrales Locos Salvatruches clique of the Ms. 13 gang, a notorious transnational criminal organization. Based in Jamaica, Queens, Amador Rios has been involved in various violent crimes, including murder, attempted murder, armed robbery, and racketeering. In May 2017, Amador Rios ordered the murder of 16-year-old Julio Vasquez, a Ms. 13 member who had failed to carry out a previous order to kill another gang member and was suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. Vasquez was brutally stabbed over 30 times in Alley Pond Park, Queens. His body was discovered days later by a birdwatcher. In October 2016, Amador Rios also ordered an attack on Luis Serrano, believed to be associated with the rival 18th Street gang. Serrano was shot in the head and left paralyzed. Amador Rios was convicted of multiple charges, including murder in aid of racketeering, attempted murder, assault, firearms offenses, and Hobbs Act robbery. In November 2023, he was sentenced to life in prison, plus additional consecutive sentences for other crimes. These convictions highlight the violent nature of Ms. 13 and the ongoing efforts by law enforcement to dismantle such gangs and protect communities from their influence.
Junior Zelaya Canals, a Queens native, was a high-ranking leader in the Shadow Park Locos Serrano sect of the notorious 18th Street gang, also known as Barrio 18. At just 28 years old, Zelaya Canals had built a reputation as a powerful shot caller whose influence stretched from New York to Texas and even El Salvador. In December 2024, he became the 9th and final defendant to plead guilty in a massive federal racketeering case targeting 18th Street members operating across multiple states. Prosecutors tied Zelaya Canals to the cold-blooded 2016 deletion of 15-year-old Joshua Guzman on Long Island and execution ordered by Zelaya Canals to prove loyalty and dedication to the gang. Just a year later, in July 2017, he led a violent shootout in Woodside, Queens, part of an escalating turf war with rival gangs. Now facing a potential life sentence, Zelaya Canals stands accused of using fear, firepower, and deletion to solidify his place in one of the most ruthless street gangs operating on both U.S. coasts. Pedro Papo Serrano, just 24 years old, was the leader of the Ozone Park set of the Trinitarios, a Dominican-rooted street gang with deep ties across Queens and Brooklyn. In summer 2021, Serrano found himself locked in a brutal gang feud with a rival set known as the Southside Trinitarios out of Brooklyn. On June 29, 2021, that rivalry exploded into violence. Serrano allegedly executed a drive by shooting on Jamaica Avenue, opening fire from a moving car into a group of suspected rivals. The ambush left 3 young men wounded and sparked a wider federal investigation. Facing mounting evidence, Serrano pleaded guilty in March 2024 to assault in aid of racketeering and firearms charges. Then, on June 13, 2025, he was sentenced to 183 months in federal prison, just over 15 years, by U.S. District Judge Eric Vitaliano. According to the FBI, Serrano's attack was part of a strategy to boost his set's reputation through reckless violence, a move that ultimately brought federal heat on the entire OZP crew. His case became symbolic of the broader federal crackdown on the Trinitarios' Bloody Street War across NYC boroughs.
Is live outside the federal building in Raleigh to explain the judge's decision. Steve?
Well, the federal judge decided that he should have life plus 7 years. That is a sentence which guarantees that Kelvin Melton will not be getting out of prison in his lifetime. And because of the vicious nature of the crime, because of his past criminal record, the Supermax prison in Colorado was the natural choice.
The facts of this case show that Kelvin Melton will attempt to commit crimes wherever he is, so he must be in a facility where that is not possible.
Kevin Melton was convicted by a federal jury of devising a kidnapping plot in 2014 aimed at Wake County Assistant DA Colleen Jansen, who had put him in this jail. The 51-year-old was accused of using a cell phone from jail to orchestrate the crime, but the kidnappers went to the wrong address and grabbed Jansen's father, Frank, by mistake. The gang members then took Jansen to Atlanta, where he was held and tortured over a 5-day period. Among the abuses, documents show that he was pistol whipped by kidnappers, who also used a stun gun on him dozens of times. He was eventually rescued by the FBI hours before the kidnappers were about to kill him. It was a case which sent shockwaves through the local law enforcement community.
Kelvin Melton, a key figure in the notorious 1A trace set of the Bloods. Melton, who has been in prison for over a decade, is not just any inmate. He's known as the godfather of 1A Trey, a gang that started as part of the United Blood Nation, UBN, in New York City's Rikers Island, but later disaffiliated while still maintaining ties to the larger Bloods organization. From inside the walls of Polk Correctional Institution in North Carolina, Melton orchestrated a chilling series of events that shocked authorities in the nation. Back in 2012, Melton was convicted of serious charges, including assault with a deadly weapon and being a violent habitual felon. Sentenced to life in prison, Melton didn't let that stop him from maintaining control over his gang. Using a contraband cell phone, he hatched a revenge plot unlike anything we've ever seen. Melton targeted both his state prosecutor and defense attorney, planning revenge kidnappings that would go on to include a botched attempt in Louisiana and a successful kidnapping in North Carolina. In March 2014, Melton's crew attempted to kidnap the sister of his defense attorney in Louisiana. They scoped out her home for days, in constant communication with Melton, who gave them instructions from behind bars. However, that plan was called off after co-conspirators were spooked and fled the scene. But things escalated quickly in April when the gang successfully kidnapped Frank Jansen, the father of Melton's state prosecutor, in North Carolina. Armed with guns, the kidnappers stormed Jansen's home, forced him into a vehicle, and took him across state lines to Georgia. For several days, Jansen was held captive, enduring brutal physical attacks, while Melton called the shots from prison, ordering his men to kill Jansen when their initial attempt to extort ransom money failed. The kidnappers even started preparing for his burial, but just before the unthinkable could happen, the FBI swooped in. Thanks to a combination of high-tech surveillance and wiretaps, the FBI traced phone records that led them straight to the kidnappers' hideout. They rescued Jansen and arrested the co-conspirators, but the story didn't end there. Investigators quickly turned their attention to Melton, discovering that the same phone used to communicate with the kidnappers had been making calls from inside Polk Correctional. When officers confronted Melton, they found him destroying the phone, but it was too late. The FBI was able to recover the broken pieces and confirmed that it was the same device used to orchestrate both the Louisiana and North Carolina kidnapping plots. This case is a stark reminder of the lengths gang leaders will go to maintain their influence, even from behind bars. It also highlights the incredible work done by law enforcement to take down a dangerous operation before it could end in tragedy. Stay tuned as we dig deeper into the life of Kelvin Melton, his role in the 1-8 Trey Bloods, and how authorities are working to dismantle these criminal organizations. DeAndre Earp, organized gang crime.
These federal warrants not only are for these suspected gang members' phone, but they highlight a deadly history of the STK gang, not only here in Wake County, but all across the nation, with crimes here in Wake County dating back 6 years. This is 24-year-old Donta Bush. 4 days ago, Bush, who lives in Wake County, was indicted on 5 federal charges. The FBI and Raleigh police believe Bush is in a leadership role with the STK gang, or Shoot to Kill. The FBI says he and others have been committing violent crimes, including murder, dating back to at least 2019. Raleigh police and the FBI state, as a result of this ongoing investigation into the STK gang, many of those identified have been arrested and charged for crimes including firearm violations, federal drug distribution violations, armed robbery, shootings. Bush is currently in jail under a federal hold. Bush was recently indicted on a kidnapping charge that happened in Raleigh in January of this year. Warrants state the victim was forced into one of the suspect vehicles at gunpoint and transported to Wendell. The suspects bound the victim's hands and feet with duct tape and placed a plastic bag over his head. Victim 1 was shot in the hip by the driver. After being shot, the victim successfully opened the door and jumped from the moving car. Warrants also state Bush's gang is connected to a murder in Raleigh. In February of 2021, Steve Martin was shot in Raleigh as a result of an attempted drug-related burglary. 4 suspects, all members of Bush's organization, were arrested and charged with. Bush has also been charged in Georgia for stealing a car and taking police on a chase. Raleigh police also found 7 guns and 2 assault rifles inside a stolen vehicle he was driving.
We're diving into the shocking case of Donta Bush Jr., a 24-year-old who has been indicted on a series of serious federal charges. Bush faces 5 counts, including conspiracy to kidnap, interference with commerce by robbery, and discharging a firearm during a violent crime, all tied to his alleged leadership role in the dangerous STK gang. Authorities have connected Bush to a string of crimes dating back to 2019, with the FBI and Raleigh Police Department revealing disturbing details of his involvement. One of the most chilling incidents occurred in January 2024, when Bush and other suspects allegedly kidnapped a man at gunpoint. The victim was bound with duct tape, had a plastic bag placed over his head, and was shot in the hip before managing to escape by jumping from a moving vehicle. Miraculously, the victim survived, but this case has raised serious concerns about gang violence in the Raleigh area. Bush is also facing charges for car thefts in both North Carolina and Georgia, where he led police on a dangerous chase. With a total of 9 firearms, including assault rifles, found in a stolen vehicle linked to him, the authorities are treating this case as a major breakthrough in their fight against gang-related crime.
Federal prosecutors tell me they believe the streets of Raleigh are safer tonight after they got convictions of 2 gang leaders who they say terrorized downtown Raleigh for parts of 2 decades. Prosecutors identified 37-year-old Demetrius Respect Divine, pictured on the right side of your screen, as the godfather of the black mob gangsters, and believe that 31-year-old Brandon B. Easy Mangum was one of the top generals in the blood set that they called well organized and focused on selling drugs, running guns, and prostitution, and that they wouldn't hesitate to kill rival gang members in their territory. Even with this conviction, they believe the gang still poses a risk to society.
I think you saw that they are. They came into the courtroom, they tried to intimidate witnesses, they tried to intimidate the court, so I think they're very much still a threat to Raleigh, and we're going to keep working at it.
Demetrius R. Divine, also known as Respect, a former leader in the Bloods gang, who has been sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms, plus an additional 20 years behind bars. This shocking case has captivated attention after Divine, 37, from Garner, NC, was convicted on multiple federal charges, including conspiracy to participate in racketeering, RICO, deletion in aid of racketeering, deletion with a firearm, drug trafficking, and conspiracy to commit witness tampering. Judge James C. Deaver III handed down this massive sentence and recommended that Devine serve his time at the Supermax Federal Prison in Colorado, the nation's most secure prison. Devine, who led the Gangsta Killer Bloods, GKB, before forming the Black Mob Gangstas, BMG, and the Donald G. Family, DGF, ran a violent criminal operation in Raleigh, NC. According to court documents and trial testimony, Devine and his co-defendant, Brandon Jowan Mangum, aka B-Easy, were involved in a range of violent crimes, including deletion, attempted deletion, and assaults. The BMG/DGF gang maintained control over their territory in the Haywood Street area of Raleigh through fear and violence, terrorizing both gang members and innocent civilians alike. This two-week trial, which concluded in October 2019, laid bare the brutal tactics Devine used to solidify his position as the godfather of the gang. From ordering deletions to organizing large-scale drug trafficking, Devine's reign of terror lasted for 2 decades. Prosecutors presented chilling evidence of his role as the leader of a violent criminal organization that dominated the streets and went to extreme lengths to maintain power. U.S. Attorney Robert Higdon didn't mince words when describing the impact of Devine's criminal activities, noting that these gangs had operated virtually unchecked for years, terrorizing communities just miles from the federal courthouse. Devine's life sentences now serve as a clear message to those involved in gang-related violence that the consequences of such actions are severe and justice will be served.
The national leader of the Pagan Motorcycle Club was sentenced to 75 years in prison. At age 49, officials say that means Christopher Baker will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Baker, who lived and ran the Pagans from Raleigh, was convicted last year of drug trafficking, firearm, and money laundering charges. The Pagans are regarded by law enforcement as an outlaw motorcycle gang.
Departments, covert operations and surveillance, as well as federal wiretaps to collect evidence up and down the eastern seaboard and right here in eastern North Carolina. Christopher Baker was a prolific trafficker, trafficking over 260 kilos of highly pure with nearly 100% purity. Of those 260 odd kilos that he trafficked in the 2 years before his arrest, there's a photograph to my right of 5 kilograms of crystal on the back of a Honda that was part of this operation.
Christopher Lamar Baker, a national leader of the infamous Pagan Motorcycle Club, who has just been sentenced to 75 years in federal prison. Baker, 49, of Raleigh, was taken down by Operation Diamond Ice, a massive multi-agency operation aimed at dismantling outlaw motorcycle gangs across the country. His crimes included drug trafficking, firearms violations, and money laundering, all part of his violent reign as a key player in the Pagans' criminal empire. Baker wasn't just any member of the Pagan Motorcycle Club. He was part of the Third Team, the group of top national leaders who controlled the gang's drug trade and illegal weapons trafficking. Over the course of a 15-month investigation, federal agents discovered that Baker had trafficked nearly 600 pounds across the East Coast, with weapons and drugs coming from suppliers in the Atlanta area. He would have Pagan members drive him from North Carolina to Atlanta to pick up his stock, then distribute the drugs and firearms across the region. But Baker wasn't just a drug dealer, he was also a violent enforcer. Known for brutal punishments, he ordered a Pagan pledge's fingers to be cut off with a table saw for allegedly stealing from another member. He even ordered the deletion of someone who sold him fake drugs. Fortunately, law enforcement intervened, placing the target in protective custody before the hit could be carried out. The Pagan Motorcycle Club is one of the most notorious outlaw biker gangs worldwide, and their violent reputation was on full display earlier this year when a member, Jonas Barrett Padilla, was deleted by members of a rival gang in Raleigh. Baker's rise through the ranks from Raleigh chapter president to national leader illustrates the dangerous influence these organizations can wield. Despite the arrest of Baker and several other members, authorities say the Pagans are far from finished. Although Operation Diamond Ice led to the seizure of 46 firearms, including illegal machine guns, and the arrest of 12 pagans, the organization's structure allows for lower-ranking members to step into leadership roles. Law enforcement officials warn that the battle against these violent gangs.
Wife and her 6 children are hoping for answers. She's feeling optimistic about new charges. Tariq Henderson and Brentley Yancey have been indicted for first-degree kidnapping, second-degree burglary, and conspiracy to commit murder.
Yes, I definitely feel like that's a step closer, because the more people that's involved that are caught, the better chance of them telling us exactly where Sean is located.
Darius Tyson has been in jail since early May. His attorney told the judge that's not right. Tyson began serving a sentence for second degree in 2010, but he was released early in 2020 after concerns about ineffective counsel and misrepresentation about evidence by the DA's office. Burton's family says that's another reason he should stay in jail.
How do you know he's not going to commit the same crime again?
The case against Darius Tyson is closely tied to the mysterious disappearance of Sean Burton, a 44-year-old Durham father of 6 and nightclub promoter who vanished in the spring of 2022. Burton was last seen in late March 2022 after leaving his home to work at Club 919 in Durham. When he never returned, his family reported him missing, launching an investigation that would soon uncover disturbing evidence. In May 2022, investigators arrested Darius Tyson, then 30 years old, charging him with first-degree kidnapping and conspiracy to commit deletion in connection with Burton's disappearance. Authorities alleged that Burton had been restrained and seriously injured during the incident, and investigators believed multiple suspects were involved in the crime. As the investigation progressed, additional suspects were identified. By late summer 2022, prosecutors announced indictments against Tariq Henderson and Brentley Yancey, charging both men with first-degree kidnapping, second-degree burglary, and conspiracy to commit deletion. Authorities alleged the 3 men were connected to the events surrounding Burton's disappearance. The case took a major turn in February 2023 when the Durham Police Department announced that new evidence supported upgrading the charges to deletion. A grand jury subsequently indicted Tyson, Henderson, and Yancey for deletion, even though Burton's body had still not been recovered. The decision underscored prosecutors' belief that the evidence pointed to a demise despite the absence of remains. Court filings and reporting revealed key pieces of evidence that investigators say tied the suspects to Burton's disappearance. Prosecutors stated that Ring doorbell camera footage captured Burton being forced into a building at gunpoint, after which police allegedly discovered the property had been ransacked and contained blood evidence in the kitchen. Investigators also traced multiple vehicles traveling from Durham to Henderson, North Carolina, and later to Warren County, suggesting the suspects moved across counties following the incident. Burton's truck was eventually discovered abandoned in Warren County, where investigators reportedly found blood inside the vehicle. Despite the evidence, the case presents a major challenge for prosecutors. Burton's body has never been found. During court hearings, prosecutors outlined the physical evidence and digital footage they believe supports the homicide charges, while defense attorneys have emphasized the absence of a body as a key weakness in the case.
3 women face charges related to actions that investigators say involve inmate Darius Tyson. A detention officer and a nurse working at the jail are charged with having sexual relations with him. Another detention officer is charged with bringing him a phone. In court, Tyson's attorney, Daniel Meyer, tried to argue for a bond reduction, claiming his client is a victim.
He was sexually assaulted. A detainee by law cannot consent. He is a victim in those cases.
Prosecutor Mary Giudero claims Tyson admitted to being the highest-ranking blood gang member in the state. She says he used his influence, even from jail, to coordinate drug deals from the phone that was illegally brought to him.
My understanding in speaking with one of the rank over at the jail, that there were on the phone, they're able to verify him setting up drug transactions and money drops.
She even says the two women he's alleged to have had sex with in jail got pregnant. WRAL Investigates found the nurse, Earl Burnett, had been reprimanded by the nursing board in Georgia. Records show she falsified the number of hours she worked and seemingly showed no remorse, telling the board she would do it again. Still, the North Carolina Board of Nursing issued her a probationary license earlier this year.
What is the...
The controversy surrounding Darius Tyson's case expanded far beyond the homicide investigation when a separate scandal unfolded inside the Durham County Detention Center, ultimately leading to the arrests of multiple employees and contractors connected to the jail. The situation first became public in September 2024, when the Durham County Sheriff's Office announced the arrest of Detention Sergeant Jade Shanisha Lanique Robertson. Authorities charged Robertson with a Class E felony under North Carolina law, which prohibits sexual activity between correctional staff and individuals in custody at a government institution. Sheriff Clarence Burkett confirmed that Robertson was immediately terminated from her position following the investigation. Officials stated that she was released on a $25,000 unsecured bond and scheduled to appear in court the following day. The arrest raised serious concerns about possible misconduct within the detention center. Just days later, investigators announced a second arrest tied to the same case. Earl Burnett, a contracted medical worker at the facility, was also charged with the same felony offense involving sexual activity with an inmate. Burnett was no longer working at the jail by the time charges were filed. Court documents cited by reporters alleged that both Robertson and Burnett engaged in activity with the same inmate on the same day, intensifying scrutiny of operations inside the detention center. The investigation continued to widen in October 2024, when the sheriff's office announced the arrest of Nicole Locke, a former detention sergeant. Locke faced multiple charges, including felony conspiracy, a felony count related to providing an inmate with a cell phone or electronic device, and a misdemeanor conspiracy charge. Prosecutors alleged that the illegal phone was used by inmates to communicate outside the jail and potentially coordinate criminal activity. Locke was also released on an unsecured bond pending court proceedings. Authorities said the case highlighted the growing problem of contraband cell phones inside correctional facilities, which law enforcement agencies across the country say are frequently used by inmates to organize illegal activity, communicate with associates on the outside, and maintain gang operations. The investigation did not stop there. In a separate but related contractor case, authorities arrested Brianna Ashley Bowie, accusing her of participating in a felony conspiracy to sell a Schedule IV controlled substance. According to WRAL reporting, Bowie was accused of bringing Mary into the detention center and providing it to an inmate, who allegedly planned to sell the drugs inside the jail. Separate from the homicide allegations, prosecutors have also presented claims about Tyson's alleged role within the Blood Street gang network in North Carolina. During a 2024 bond hearing, Assistant District Attorney Mary Jude Darrow told the court that Tyson admitted during an interview with investigators that he was the highest-ranking Blood gang member in the state. The North Carolina Department of Corrections listed Tyson under the nickname King Blood. Prosecutors alleged that even while incarcerated, Tyson continued to influence criminal activity outside the jail. Authorities claim Tyson was able to coordinate drug transactions and arrange money drops using an illegal cell phone obtained inside the Durham County Jail. Prosecutors also alleged that he had access to other contraband and maintained communication with associates outside the facility. The case surrounding Darius Tyson and the disappearance of Sean Burton remains one of the most troubling criminal investigations to emerge from Durham in recent years. Despite the absence of Burton's body, prosecutors say the evidence, including surveillance footage, blood evidence, and the movement of vehicles across multiple counties, points to a violent crime that investigators believe ended in Burton's death. At the same time, the allegations that Tyson maintained influence while incarcerated have raised serious concerns about contraband, corruption, and security failures inside the Durham County Detention Center. The arrests of detention officers and contractors connected to the scandal only deepened the controversy, highlighting how criminal networks can sometimes extend beyond the streets and into the very institutions meant to contain them. As court proceedings continue and investigators push forward, many questions remain unanswered. Most importantly, what truly happened to Sean Burton, and whether his family will ever recover the missing father of 6. For now, the case stands as a stark reminder of the complex intersection between street gangs, criminal investigations, and the justice system in North Carolina, where a single disappearance ultimately...
Prasad was man. Why did they chase us, man? We the young chasers, you hear me? We getting that change, though. That's what we do, though. Touch this black, something get dropped. I had your boy sitting up in here in jail and shit. Shit ain't for me, kid. Yeah? Not for me, kid. Did my time. Deserve it. Yeah, big bro. Look at my bro, though. Look how they got my bro, though. But chill, though. Chill, though. Y'all thought niggas wasn't coming home, though? Chill, though. Why y'all mad, though? Chill, though.
Malik Harrell, known on the streets as Mo Money, was the feared and undisputed leader of the Bully Gang, a violent street crew operating out of Brooklyn's Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood. Described by prosecutors as a ruthless shot caller, Harrell built the Bully Gang into a dangerous criminal enterprise, one that left a trail of violence, drugs, and death across the borough and beyond. In 2024, after a high-profile federal trial, Harrell was convicted on a sweeping 21-count RICO indictment, which included charges of racketeering, deletion, attempted deletion, armed robbery, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and firearms possession. The conviction was the result of a years-long federal investigation into the Bully Gang's activities, which stretched from the streets of Brooklyn into the walls of Rikers Island, where the crew was also accused of drug trafficking and orchestrating hits. The government presented evidence linking Harrell to multiple shootings, including targeted attacks on rival gang members and an alleged contract deletion of a government informant. Prosecutors told the jury that Harrell accepted without hesitation a $5,000 contract to delete an informant, underscoring his willingness to commit deletion to protect the gang's criminal interests. Federal agents also tied Harrell and his gang to the distribution of drugs, using local networks and correctional facilities as points of sale. According to the Department of Justice, the Bully Gang ran operations with military-like coordination, intimidating witnesses, eliminating rivals, and using fear to dominate their territory. Harrell now awaits sentencing and faces a potential life sentence in federal prison. His conviction marks a major blow to gang activity in central Brooklyn, and a reminder of how deeply organized street violence can penetrate urban communities.
Candles sit in the courtyard of East New York's Pink Houses, where 33-year-old Shatavia Walls was shot on July 7th, but sadly died 10 days later.
Somebody to stop lighting the fireworks because the kids was in the park. They was asked politely.
She says days later, as Walls and a friend were leaving the Linden Boulevard building after a visit, they were gunned down. According to police sources, it's believed Walls was the intended target. A 30-year-old man was also shot, but survived.
Malik Mill, a 30-year-old East New York native, was the feared and calculating leader of the 90 Gang, a violent street crew that held territorial control over the notorious Pink Houses housing complex in Brooklyn. Under Miller's leadership, the gang ruled the area through a mix of drug trafficking, intimidation, and targeted violence, establishing the Pink Houses as one of the most dangerous gang strongholds in the borough. In 2024, a federal jury found Miller guilty on a sweeping racketeering indictment centered around the 2020 deletion, a courageous young woman who had previously testified against one of Miller's underlings in a gun case. Prosecutors alleged that Walls became a marked target the moment she stepped into a courtroom. When she refused to recant her statement or be silenced, Miller orchestrated a revenge hit, ordering members of the 90 Gang to track her down and kill her in cold blood. Walls was shot multiple times in broad daylight near the Pink Houses, a demise that sent shockwaves through the community and drew national attention to the dangers of witness retaliation. During trial, Federal prosecutors presented wiretaps, gang communications, and insider testimony proving that Miller masterminded the plot and used his power within the gang to enforce a brutal code of silence. Miller was ultimately convicted of racketeering, deletion for hire conspiracy, narcotics distribution, and firearms possession charges that could send him to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole.
Prosecutors say they were part of a street gang called the Brick Squad, a subset of a bigger, violent criminal network.
10 men arrested, accused of funneling money back to members behind bars. Prosecutors say the gang is behind several shootings, 2 of them deadly and caught on video.
His name is Howard Smith, but authorities say he likes to go by a nickname.
Yo, bro, I'm Godfather.
That's Smith on a wiretapped call from inside prison, where prosecutors allege he sent marching orders to this team of gang members. Another gang member, Markel Pender, inside the prison walls of Attica, sent similar orders, even showed surveillance video of this one, where the accused gunman raises his arms only hours after he appeared in this video smoking with victim John Fernandez, allegedly targeted for not selling enough.
This is an old school gang, and they make their money from dealing drugs.
And here's another surveillance video of a second on Hart Street in Bed-Stuy in April of 2018. Brick Squad gang allegedly sold drugs not only in Brooklyn, but also in Binghamton and in Bangor, Maine. The major clue that tipped off law enforcement, the prison commissary accounts of Smith and Pender, gang members allegedly contributing money to prove loyalty.
Is from our investigation, seems to be the leader of this gang. He's a 49-year-old man. He's been in prison for quite some time. His name is Howard Smith. His nickname is Hamo. He also goes by the Godfather. He's currently serving a life sentence, and we allege that he is the leader of this Brick Squad gang. He is definitely an integral part of this conspiracy, although he's in prison. When we were investigating this case, one of the things we learned is that he has more than $25,000 in his commissary. We learned that he was often complaining that people weren't putting enough money in his commissary and wasn't visiting him enough. Let's play one of the calls that we intercepted.
Most of these dudes are not really putting nothing in. They're not even putting no work in, especially behind walls. No, bro, that's all. Yo, bro, I'm the fucking Godfather, right? I'm the fucking Godfather. I don't take care of he take care of me. What Godfather you really meant? And then he takes care of Think about it. Does it make sense?
The Brick Squad, a Bloods-affiliated gang also known as the Untouchable Guerrilla Stone Nation, was active in Brooklyn neighborhoods like East New York and Brownsville. In December 2019, Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez announced a 48-count indictment against 10 alleged members, charging them with racketeering, deletion, drug trafficking, and weapons offenses. Authorities said the gang was moving drugs across New York City, upstate New York, and even into Maine, using violence to control their territory. At the center of the case was gang leader Howard Smith, known as the Godfather. Prosecutors flagged his unusually large prison commissary account as a sign of the gang's profits. The indictment tied several members to 17-year-old John Fernandez, shot in Ocean Hill in 2017, and Claudel Gary, gunned down in Bedford-Stuyvesant in 2018. Deshaun Washington, Quazir Farmer, Marco Pender, and Christopher Garcia were among those charged. In total, the indictment included 7 non-fatal shootings and extensive narcotics operations. By September 2024, prosecutors reported that Washington, Garcia, and Farmer had been sentenced to life in prison. 6 other defendants received terms ranging from 4 to 12 years. Gonzalez stated that these convictions should send a clear message. Those who terrorize communities with gun violence and drug crime will be held fully accountable. Court records revealed further detail about the deletions. On December 7, 2017, Jashawn Washington, acting on orders from Christopher Garcia, ambushed and fatally shot fellow gang member John Fernandez outside 601 Bainbridge Street. The two believed Fernandez had cooperated with law enforcement and wasn't earning enough for the crew. On April 18, 2018, Quasier Farmer and Marco Pender shot and rival Claudel Gary outside 175 Hart Street in Bedford-Stuyvesant. The attack, which followed a year-long feud, was carried out at close range.
Thursday night, after hailing an Uber to visit relatives, a Lamborghini SUV slammed into the Toyota Camry she was in around 7 at the intersection of 103rd Avenue and Rockaway Boulevard, leaving this mangled mess. The driver of the Uber and a passenger in the Lamborghini were injured and are recovering at the hospital. The driver of the Lamborghini fled the scene on foot.
Jason Liriano was the mastermind behind the Route Boys, a highly organized and mobile street crew that ran a multi-state burglary and narcotics trafficking operation. Based primarily in Brooklyn, the Route Boys gained a reputation for their aggressive tactics, targeting pharmacies and convenience stores across New York City and parts of Long Island in a coordinated effort to steal prescription pills and cash. The stolen pharmaceuticals, primarily opioids and other controlled substances, were then funneled into an illicit distribution network that fueled the group's drug empire. Federal prosecutors described the Route Boys as a well-oiled criminal enterprise, using stolen vehicles, masks, and lookouts to evade law enforcement during their high-stakes robberies. The group operated with precision, often breaking into multiple stores in a single night, and were known to carry firearms during their operations to protect their turf and intimidate rivals. Liriano, who orchestrated the entire scheme, was eventually brought down by a sweeping federal investigation. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute controlled substances and possession of firearms in furtherance of drug trafficking. In one of the final chapters of the case, Liriano was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, making him the last of 10 co-defendants convicted and sentenced in connection to the Route Boys operation. Yasser Ashburn, the notorious leader of a violent folk nation set operating in Brooklyn, was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in federal prison. His crew operated primarily out of the Ebbets Field Houses, a public housing complex in Crown Heights that served as their stronghold. From roughly 2007 until their arrests in 2011 and 2012, Ashburn and his gang were responsible for a wave of bloodshed, including deletion, non-fatal shootings, and armed robberies throughout Brooklyn and the greater tri-state area. Federal prosecutors described the Folk Nation crew as a tight-knit, heavily armed unit of 20 to 25 members who controlled territory through fear and brute force. Weapons were frequently stashed in stairwells, and orders came directly from Ashburn, who was considered both the operational and spiritual leader of the set. After a jury trial, Ashburn and 2 of his top associates, Jamal Laurent and Travell Merritt, were found guilty of racketeering and racketeering conspiracy. These charges included 3 brutal deletions: Courtney Robinson, Brent Duncan, and Dasta James. The sentences were handed down in late 2015. Merritt received 40 years in prison on November 6th. Just 4 days later, Laurent was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms. Ashburn, the gang's top shot caller, was hit with 2 life sentences, ensuring he would never see freedom again. One of the most disturbing incidents tied to the gang was the demise of Courtney Robinson on April 20, 2008. That night, a birthday party inside the Ebbets Field Houses turned violent when a fight broke out. Robinson attempted to protect his nephew, who was being beaten by Folk Nation members. Ashburn briefly left the scene, retrieved a handgun hidden in a stairwell part of the gang's known weapons cache, and returned to the apartment. Without hesitation, he shot Robinson in the back at point-blank range, deleting him instantly.
I was brought up toting slammer. Like, so, belt had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like, my these little sagging down at their knees. I know you ain't got no pistol on you. Don't even talk tough to me. You feel me? Like,
well, Steve, a very dramatic day here. I was in the courtroom as this accused Bloods gang leader and rapper on the rise tried to counter the government's claims that he's a killer drug lord who terrorized his own community.
Born out of that, I was forced with a decision. Either I'm gonna starve or risk going to prison.
32-year-old Ronald Heron, known as Rod Diggs, portrays the gritty lifestyle of the streets in his music videos. The aspiring rapper with a long rap sheet of drug and weapons charges tried to convince a jury that he gave up gangbanging for the murderous Mad Dog Bloods to focus on his music after his last prison term. His childhood friend Shanduk McFadder says prosecutors are smearing Heron with stereotypes and circumstantial evidence.
The music is basically us talking about the life that we come from, not necessarily saying this is what I did. You know, this is a very intelligent man, and this is not a man who would commit all these crimes and didn't tell you for you to use it against him.
Inside the Brooklyn federal courthouse, prosecutors painted a very different picture with a 23-count indictment. They allege that Heron is guilty of racketeering charges for running a drug-dealing operation in the Gowanus housing development where he grew up. They also claim he was involved in 3 murders and 3 attempted murders and introduced his music videos as evidence.
Get the ring 10 racks, man. That's platinum, man.
That's what it is. We in the projects.
That's heavy. This
ain't no goddamn bourbon shit. We in the projects, son, so you know credibility counts, son. Call the tower.
That's 423, man. It's just, you know, 4 pound, man.
You know what I mean? Let y'all niggas know this ain't no gimmick, man. We in the projects for real, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's definitely hood.
Yeah, you see that, right? This is hood.
Yeah, you gotta catch that.
No. Oh, flat screen, yeah. Somebody just bought a flat screen.
Check the dishes.
What's your explanation of why Rod Diggs is in prison right now?
That's just that's off a lot of hearsay. That's just like.
But, I mean, what was he convicted of?
They're trying to say a bunch of murders and drug trafficking and things to that nature, so that.
He was out on parole, right?
No, he wasn't on parole.
Not parole, but he had beaten.
Yeah, he had
beaten a murder case.
Yeah, he had beaten a murder case.
He had beaten a murder case, and he was out.
Ronald Heron, aka Rod Diggs, is a notorious figure in Brooklyn's street gang and hip-hop scenes. Raised in the Gowanus houses in Boerum Hill, Brooklyn, he rose to prominence as a high-ranking member of the Bloods gang, specifically the murderous Mad Dogs faction. His criminal activities spanned drug trafficking, violent crimes, and other illicit enterprises, with a significant presence in Brooklyn's drug trade. Rod Diggs' involvement in multiple acts of violence, including shootings and murders, was well documented. He often used his music and social media platforms to boast about his criminal exploits and intimidate rivals. In 2010, Rod Diggs was arrested and later indicted on charges including racketeering, drug trafficking, and multiple murders. During his 2014 trial, prosecutors presented evidence from his rap lyrics and social media posts to tie him to various crimes. He was found guilty on 21 counts, including 3 murders, and sentenced to 12 life terms plus 105 years in federal prison. Despite his criminal activities, Rod Diggs was also an aspiring rapper, using his music to narrate his life in the streets and the struggles of living in Brooklyn's violent neighborhoods. His lyrics often reflected his involvement in gang life and criminal exploits.
Christian Keston John, from Brooklyn, was the cold-blooded ringleader of the Hull Street crew, a violent and sadistic gang that operated across Bushwick and Bedford-Stuyvesant during the 2000s. Under John's leadership, the crew gained a fearsome reputation for not just deleting rivals, but doing so with extreme cruelty. Over more than a decade, the Hull Street crew terrorized entire neighborhoods, carrying out kidnappings, drug deals, home invasions, and multiple torture deletions that shocked even seasoned investigators. In 2014, a Brooklyn federal jury convicted Christian John on a staggering array of charges, including racketeering, 6 counts of deletion, attempted deletion, armed robbery, kidnapping, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and weapons violations. According to prosecutors, John's role went far beyond street-level violence. He was the mastermind, often directing others to carry out horrific acts of brutality. Among the most chilling details presented in court, John ordered the torture and execution of at least 6 individuals. In some cases, the victims were duct-taped, bound, beaten, and shot at close range. In one particularly gruesome incident, John lured a man into an abandoned house, suffocated him, and then set his body on fire, sending a clear message to enemies and would-be informants. The gang's crimes were not just confined to the streets. They were involved in large-scale drug trafficking in and around Bushwick, often using violence to control turf and silence threats. John's second-in-command, Marvin Johnson, played a key role in orchestrating many of these acts and was also sentenced to life in prison. In January 2017, Christian John was officially sentenced to life imprisonment in federal court. Attorney officials described the Hall Street Crew as one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in Brooklyn at the time. Ronald Williams, a 43-year-old East Flatbush native, was identified by federal prosecutors as a high-ranking member and violent enforcer of the 90s Crew, a street gang that operated primarily out of central Brooklyn. Known for its grip on local drug distribution and intimidation tactics, the 90s Crew built a reputation for ruthless enforcement, with Williams playing a central role. In a major takedown by federal authorities, Williams was convicted in Brooklyn Federal Court of murder for hire conspiracy and large-scale drug trafficking. The case against him was built through wiretaps, surveillance, and key witness testimony, including evidence that Williams offered $5,000 to have a suspected informant deleted. According to court records, the hit was intended to silence anyone cooperating with law enforcement and to protect the gang's drug business from internal collapse. Beyond the deletion plot, Williams was also accused of running a massive marijuana distribution operation, selling hundreds of pounds of product in and around his East Flatbush neighborhood. He maintained control through a tight network of street-level dealers and used threats, violence, and fear to keep his operation intact.
32-year-old Ronald Heron, known as Rod Diggs, portrays the gritty lifestyle of the streets in his music videos. The aspiring rapper with a long rap sheet of drug and weapons charges tried to convince a jury that he gave up gangbanging for the murderous Mad Dog Bloods to focus on his music after his last prison.
New York City has long been a battleground for numerous gangs, each with its own hierarchy, operations, and impact on the communities they inhabit. Key figures such as Rod Diggs, Dwight Dick Wolf Reed, Kian Cash Zhang, Jother Perez, and Larry O have risen to prominence within these criminal organizations. Their leadership has not only driven the activities of their respective gangs, but has also drawn significant attention from law enforcement agencies, resulting in a cycle of violence and legal repercussions. This document provides an overview of these influential gang leaders, highlighting their roles, criminal activities, and the subsequent efforts to curb their influence.
Awareness, you know what I'm saying? It's awareness, basically, as far as, you understand what I'm saying, like the message of, I want some Godsburg shit too. I'm like, yo, we gotta stop killing each other. We gotta start uplifting each other. We gotta start buying from black-owned communities instead of taking our money and going and taking our money out there and getting rollies and Porsches and you know what I'm saying?
Dwight Reed, known by his alias Dick Wolf, is a prominent leader of the Gorilla Stone Bloods, a subset of the United Blood Nation in New York. Under his leadership, the Gorilla Stone Bloods have been deeply involved in various criminal activities, including drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, robbery, and acts of violence to maintain their territorial control. Reed's gang has distributed illegal drugs across New York and used violence and intimidation against rival gangs and perceived threats. Reed, along with other high-ranking members, has faced numerous legal issues, including arrests and indictments related to their criminal operations. In 2020, several members, including Reed, were indicted on charges of racketeering, drug trafficking, and weapons offenses. His leadership has contributed to the gang's fearsome reputation and drawn significant attention from law enforcement agencies, resulting in multiple investigations and efforts to dismantle the gang. Dwight Dick Wolf Reed's influence within the guerrilla Stone Bloods continues to shape the criminal landscape of New York. Kian Zhang, also known as Cash, was sentenced to 9 years in prison by United States District Judge Carol Bagley Amon at the federal courthouse in Brooklyn. Zhang, the leader of the Zhang organization, operated a violent criminal enterprise in the Sunset Park section of Brooklyn and the Flushing section of Queens for nearly a decade. The enterprise engaged in violent assaults, extortions, and drug distribution. Zhang pleaded guilty in January 2017 to participating in the organization's racketeering activities from January 2007 to September 2015. The court also ordered him to pay $30,550 in restitution. Zhang's criminal activities included ordering assaults and extortions, as well as operating a narcotics distribution network and an illegal gambling parlor. Specific incidents highlighted include orchestrating a planned assault on a woman's ex-boyfriend and his wife in August 2013, attempting to extort a man in New Rochelle in December 2013, and ordering the beating of a man over a financial dispute in the fall of 2014. In May 2015, Zhang's underlings extorted and brutally assaulted the owner of a gambling parlor, causing severe injuries and extensive property damage. In addition to these violent acts, Zhang and his associates regularly distributed narcotics. Other members of the Zhang organization have also been convicted and sentenced for various crimes, including extortion and racketeering. These sentences range from 28 months to 78 months in prison. Brother Perez, also known as Jutha or Juhef, was a significant figure within the Young Gunners YG gang in New York City. He rose to prominence as the leader of the YG gang, which is involved in various criminal activities, including drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, robbery, and violent assaults. Perez's leadership in the gang was marked by violent conflicts with rival gangs, such as the Young Flybridge and the OGs. His involvement in gang activities drew the attention of law enforcement, leading to multiple arrests and legal issues over the years. Perez also had a connection to the music industry, being close friends with Bronx-raised rapper French Montana. Despite his gang affiliations, Perez was known in the local rap scene and had influence in the community. In August 2023, Perez was involved in a deadly brawl at the Tropicana Bada Bing nightclub in the Bronx, where he was brutally beaten with a hookah pipe by members of a rival gang. He suffered severe head injuries, fell into a coma, and died a week later. This incident triggered a wave of retaliatory attacks, further escalating gang violence in the Bronx. Larry Calderon, or Larry O, is a significant figure in New York's criminal underworld, known for his leadership of the Mac Ballers family, a subset of the Bloods, but broke away from the Brim Alliance. Under Larry O's leadership, the Mac Ballers engaged in various criminal enterprises, including drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, robbery, and violent assaults. Operating primarily in New York City, the gang maintains control over certain territories through violence and intimidation, particularly in the distribution of drugs. The Mac Ballers are known for their aggressive tactics against rival gangs and individuals who threaten their operations. Larry O and his gang members have faced numerous legal issues, including arrests and indictments, as a result of extensive law enforcement investigations aimed at dismantling their operations and reducing violence. His leadership has significantly impacted the communities where the Mac Ballers operate, contributing to a climate of fear and violence. Consequently, Larry O. and the Mac Ballers have become a primary focus for law enforcement agencies working to combat gang violence and crime in New York City, leading to numerous crackdowns and efforts to bring gang members to justice.
I know it's gang.
Christopher Acevedo, also known as S.A., is the founder and leader of the Wood City Street Gang, based in the Woodhull neighborhood of Queens, New York. Wood City, also known as the Yellow Tape Boys, YTB, has been involved in various criminal activities, including racketeering, murder, drug trafficking, and fraud, since at least 2010. Acevedo's notoriety rose significantly after his involvement in the murder of David Hutchinson, a leader of the rival Snow Gang. This incident occurred on August 26, 2019, following the theft of a gold YTB chain from a high-ranking member of Wood City. The theft led to escalating tensions between the two gangs, which had already been engaged in a turf war marked by taunts and insults exchanged over social media. On the day of the murder, Acevedo and other Wood City members tracked the Snow Gang leader, who had posted a photo wearing the stolen chain. Acevedo shot and killed Hutchinson in broad daylight outside a deli in Queens, in what was described as a drive-by shooting. This act of violence was part of Acevedo's efforts to maintain his gang's reputation and retaliate for the theft. In May 2023, Acevedo was convicted of murder in aid of racketeering and causing death through the use of a firearm. He was subsequently sentenced to 2 concurrent life terms in prison. This case highlighted the severe consequences of gang violence and the ongoing efforts by law enforcement to combat such activities in New York. Melvi Amador Rios, also known as Little and Pinky, is a leader of the Centrales Locos Salvatruches clique of the Ms. 13 gang, a notorious transnational criminal organization. Based in Jamaica, Queens, Amador Rios has been involved in various violent crimes, including murder, attempted murder, armed robbery, and racketeering. In May 2017, Amador Rios ordered the murder of 16-year-old Julio Vasquez, a Ms. 13 member who had failed to carry out a previous order to kill another gang member and was suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. Vasquez was brutally stabbed over 30 times in Alley Pond Park, Queens. His body was discovered days later by a birdwatcher. In October 2016, Amador Rios also ordered an attack on Luis Serrano, believed to be associated with the rival 18th Street gang. Serrano was shot in the head and left paralyzed. Amador Rios was convicted of multiple charges, including murder in aid of racketeering, attempted murder, assault, firearms offenses, and Hobbs Act robbery. In November 2023, he was sentenced to life in prison, plus additional consecutive sentences for other crimes. These convictions highlight the violent nature of Ms. 13 and the ongoing efforts by law enforcement to dismantle such gangs and protect communities from their influence. Quandle Smothers, also known as Chucky, is a gang leader from Brooklyn, New York, who led the elite assassin Millis, EAM, a faction of the Blood Street Gang. Smothers was heavily involved in racketeering, drug trafficking, and violent crimes, including multiple shootings that resulted in severe injuries and deaths. Smothers' criminal activities spanned from 2006 to 2019. He and his gang engaged in extensive narcotics trafficking. Under his leadership, the gang referred to their territory in East New York as Guntown due to the high frequency of shootings and violence they perpetrated. In 2011, Smothers shot a fellow gang member over a dispute related to drugs and loyalty, resulting in the victim's leg being amputated. Throughout his leadership, EAM members engaged in feuds with rival gangs, which often led to shootouts. One of these incidents led to the death of Michael Tenorio, and other shootings left several victims permanently disabled. In 2023, Smothers was convicted of racketeering conspiracy and possessing a firearm in furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison in 2024. This conviction was part of a broader effort by law enforcement to dismantle violent gangs and reduce crime in the community. Other members of EAM were also convicted and sentenced for their roles in various crimes, including murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and assault. Andrew Dunn, also known as Caballo, is the leader of the Shooting Boys Gang, a criminal organization based in the University Heights section of the Bronx, New York. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison for the murder of Angel Barrero in November 2020, as well as other racketeering offenses. Dunn initially was a member of the Trinitarios gang before breaking off to form the Shooting Boys in 2017, which led to a violent rivalry between the two gangs. Under Dunn's leadership, the Shooting Boys were involved in extensive drug trafficking, including the sale of crack cocaine, heroin, and marijuana. The gang was also responsible for multiple shootings and violent acts against rival gang members and innocent bystanders. The rivalry between the Shooting Boys and the Trinitarios resulted in numerous non-fatal shootings and escalated gang violence in the Bronx. The culmination of this violence was the murder of Angel Barrero. On November 5, 2020, Barrero was sitting in his parked car when Dunn approached and shot him multiple times. Dunn fled to the Dominican Republic shortly after the murder, but was apprehended by the United States Marshals Service in April 2022 and extradited back to the U.S. Dunn's criminal activities were further complicated by his relationship with Gina Mester, a former NYPD officer who provided him with confidential law enforcement information, helping him evade capture and obstructing federal investigations into the gang. Mester was sentenced to over 5 years in prison for her involvement. Dunn was sentenced in February 2023 and is serving a 35-year prison term, with an additional 5 years of supervised release after his prison term.
Danny, have some respect for your fathers. Y'all my children. How dare y'all jokes? Big time busters. If you was really lit like that, you do it on your own like I did. That's why you could never beat me. That's why they laugh at y'all behind your back.
Long Island have announced an indictment against 31 accused gang members who they say are responsible for 18 different shootings.
In one of them, a school teacher was killed after his car was allegedly mistaken for a rival gang member's. Jody Goldberg is in Brentwood with details.
Kimberly Collins Midget was a beloved mother and school teacher. Police say she was killed after her car was mistaken for a rival gang members last summer in Hempstead. Those responsible are members of the Bloodhound Brims gang, a subset of the Bloods. The leader, Latique Johnson, who went by the Pilot, was allegedly calling shots from his jail cell in California. Omar Barry and Josiah Herbert were at the top of the gang's hierarchy on Long Island. Law enforcement seized tens of thousands of dollars from Johnson's commissary account. They say he would collect dues from lower-ranking members.
He did that from a jail cell in California. He may or may not have thought he was insulated from prosecution on Long Island. He is not.
A total of 31 alleged gang members and associates were arrested.
Latique Johnson, also known as La Brim, is the founder and leader of the Bloodhound Brims, a violent faction of the Bloods street gang based in New York City. Johnson was instrumental in organizing and leading the gang's operations both inside and outside prison walls. Johnson was convicted on charges of racketeering, narcotics trafficking, and firearms offenses. In 2019, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison for his role in leading the Bloodhound Brims. His leadership was marked by orchestrating violent crimes, including shootings and armed robberies, to maintain control over the gang's territory and operations. Johnson continued to direct gang activities from prison, ordering violent acts and coordinating criminal enterprises in New York and beyond. In April 2024, Johnson was arraigned on additional charges in Suffolk County, New York, for conspiracy to commit murder and other violent crimes. These charges stem from his continued influence and orders given while he was incarcerated in a federal prison in California. Johnson's leadership and the activities of the Bloodhound Brims have significantly impacted communities through violence and illegal activities, prompting extensive law enforcement efforts to dismantle the gang's operations.
While each of these gang leaders came from different cities, different gangs, and different backgrounds, their stories reveal a common pattern. Power, money, fear, and influence often brought them to the top, but federal investigations, informants, surveillance operations, and years of law enforcement work eventually brought many of their organizations crashing down. From New Jersey and Maryland to Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and New York, these cases demonstrate how organized crime can impact entire communities and how difficult it can be to dismantle criminal networks once they take root. The names may change, the cities may be different, and the gangs may wear different colors, but the outcome is often the same: indictments, prison sentences, and lives forever changed. If you enjoyed this documentary, be sure to subscribe to All Scoops Media for more gang histories, crime investigations, organized crime documentaries, and major law enforcement takedowns from across the United States. The next story is never far away.